Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing? We just had a good little bit of a catch up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce you to Troy, the Ranch Fairy, and it's an absolute honor. And yeah, it's thank you again, Troy. I was just saying before, but like I really
Yeah,
appreciate this.
oh my, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the call.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
great.
it's cool. So basically, I mean, most people know this, watch this, know that I'm pretty new to archery. I still think 2 years in, I classify myself as being new. So like I basically just going to pick your brains, and we want to try and get as much information out there to this lot as possible about like I guess why people should be using high FOC arrows, and we've got a whole bunch of different questions to ask you, kind of roughly around that and stuff too. So yeah, I think let's take it away. Why Troy? Why should people be using the high FOC arrows?
Well, let's back up before I start blowing everybody's mind because I'm going to say a bunch of stuff that's going to make you're going to spin out of control. And I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm really off the grid. So if you are going to listen to me, you have to understand that I don't care about anything but perfect arrow flight and high penetration.
Gotcha.
That's it. And those two components are not really discussed. There's a ton of information all over the internet about delivering the arrow from the bow to the target under the assumption that that means your arrow system is going to penetrate whatever it hits. And I have not found that to be accurate. They are two different things. You're good at 3D, good at shooting spots, but you're not under stress. It's not cold or hot. You're not stalking up and down mountains, running over the side of something, breathing heavy. Animals aren't moving around on you. The range doesn't change. And they have a lot of bones. So, like I said, I'm not trying to be, I approach it very differently than the rest of the whole archery industry. Maximum penetration is all I'm concerned about. So that backs into why we're shooting really solid broadheads, preferably monolithic, one piece, cut on contact, hand sharpenable, dare no fail points broadheads, and higher forward of center arrows that are flying perfect. They have to be flying perfect.
Yep, gotcha. Uh,
So the approach.
yeah, I was lucky enough to hold one of those big, is it the 600 grain Bishop heads the other day?
Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of them. They're fantastic.
Man, I didn't even. It's
It's
like
truly fantastic.
having a missile in your hand almost. It's I mean, like it was the heavier than most people's arrow, just in one head,
I
basically.
shot a pig that weighed about 225 with one, and it was going probably 170 feet per second.
Yeah,
The arrow weighed 1,000 grains.
yeah,
It just goes and just went right through him and stuck in the dirt, and he ran out. Just killed him better than a hammer. It was awesome.
yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I mean, for me, I think maybe I was just lucky. The one I ran onto your videos first was oh my, what do you call it? The impact paradox. The video, and I was like, holy shit.
That's a big problem. Yeah.
That was the one where I was like, okay, now this all makes sense to me. Like, yeah, it really did.
Well, that's a combination of two different factors. So if you have an arrow that is not flying perfect, you can take a very light spined arrow if you'll bare shaft it and get it flying perfect, and it won't paradox quite as much because it's not coming in. If an arrow comes in a little bit wonky, it's going to hit, and then, I mean, they're long, right? So the point hits, and this part, wherever the point goes, this part's going to sway back and forth like that.
Gotcha.
And it's going to kill your penetration, even with a humongous mechanical. Let's say you get super deployment and you get a 3.5 inch wide cut. Depending on which way that broadhead goes, if it's two blade and it cuts this way, but the paradox is this way, the shaft's going to hit the wound,
Just
and it's
slap
going
it.
to it doesn't drive straight in, and no bone in any animal is flat. This isn't Minecraft.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
gotcha.
Right? So the bones themselves and the animals are rounded. And you got to take that into consideration. The arrow's going to hit, and will it cattywampus go sideways on impact? Again, like I said, I'm all about deep penetration. There's nothing else the arrow gives us There's no hydrostatic shock. There's no wound channel expansion. You see some of these bullets and see the gel expand and go like that. You don't get that. So the only thing we have working for us as bow hunters is distance and length of wound channel.
Yeah, I
That's
gotcha.
it.
I gotcha. Yeah, I gotcha. I mean, because that's kind of a good point, right? If say your your 2-inch mechanical only goes in halfway, it's probably still not as much as a full pass. Like you're probably not doing as much damage actually as a full pass through.
Well, I take that differently. That depends on angle.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I just did a video on a pig I had to kill. There was this pig kid we named Nervous Ned. He's only like 100 pounds, but he was circling way around us and sneaking in and stuff. He busted 4 or 5 people, and I got him in front of me, and I had to kill him. I can't have smart ones. I'm already dumb enough. So when I shot, I knew he was going to jump. He was already a very nervous. The way he was wired, he was not a calm critter. It was 17 yards. He was under a deer feeder. I used deer feeders as my testing lab to shoot live animals in hunting situations to be able to test arrows. And when I shot him, I aimed at his armpit, and the arrow, he spun, went like that, and the arrow hit 8 inches behind where I was intending the arrow. You can see it on the video. The pig's like that, and when the arrow hits him, he's almost straight away. I can't fix that. But the arrow hit him in the guts, center mass, centered his liver, took out a lung, and went out his neck. Now, if I measured it, if I would have only gotten 7 inches of penetration, it would have been a gut liver hit. And that would have been a much different deal. He went down, broke him. It broke his back.
Yeah.
And he just rolled, right? It had enough energy to pass through. He wasn't big, so probably 12 inches of him hit his spine, broke his neck, popped out right behind his ear.
I think I saw your autopsy of this one, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, like completely severed at the spine, right?
Right.
Yeah,
so what I ended up doing, because I had all that, it wasn't a really heavy arrow. It was a high forward to center. It was only about 5.25 and 16% or something. Flying perfect, but bare shafted and all that. But it kept going. And if it would have stopped halfway, I would have had a plugged entry hole with guts, and he'd have been running like the wind. He'd have been fine. I mean, he'd have been able to run a long way. But because the arrow kept going, it hit liver, lungs, severed an artery, severed his spine, popped out his neck, and rolled it. And that's what I mean by maximum penetration. I couldn't control that. He was about like this. I'm shooting from this side, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. He was like that, and then he was like that when the arrow hit him.
Yep, I gotcha.
There's no predicting that.
No.
There isn't. He spun on me.
Yeah.
So that's where it matters. The whitetail deer are very bad about this. I don't see y'all's goats and stuff jumping a lot.
Nah,
I watched a bunch of y'all's videos today. I just scanned around and saw what y'all do and moved up to the shots. They seem to just stand there and go,
Man, Troy,
yay!
goats. Goats are great fun to shoot, dude. If you'd enjoy it.
That one you shot in the freaking throat right here. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, they make horrible, horrible noises. I tell you, they'll haunt your dreams forever.
Oh, yeah. They don't jump around like a deer. I think you don't know where he's going.
The other thing is they seem to not have much will to live. They're like, oh, I've got to cut, and then they just die. I say goats are quite good to shoot because often are badly shot, even with a bullet or something. They'll just kind of, I think it's like fright or shock. They're very prone to that, and they just keel over.
I don't know what's up with that. I've started. I like shooting crows, and I've got a call. Electronic call, and they'll come in. You can only get about 5 shots, and then they figure it out and leave.
Yeah,
that's the dyingest bird I've ever shot.
Yeah,
I mean, you can shoot them with 9, 7.5, 6s. It doesn't matter. If you pull the trigger, they just fold up. And you shoot a dove, and it's flopping on the ground, running all over the place. Crows just go, foop. Like, you got me.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I don't know what it is. Yeah, so, anyway, I think actually, Troy, we should back up a little bit because we didn't really kind of explain, who you are, what you did, and how you got here first, right? I think at this stage, people are like, who is this guy and how does he know all this stuff? So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, take it away. Failure.
Yeah. So I'm the biggest failure you ever met. And that's why I started doing what I do. So I killed a pretty good deer. Scores in around 155 inches about 15, 16 years ago, and I just lost my interest in shooting deer. You and I discussed, I have I married the eldest of 10 children, and I have 40 nieces and nephews, and then their friends, and I love to take those guys hunting. And then I have my kids are in their 20s, and those nephews are in their 20s, so I have my own minions to give arrows to and the stuff that I'm testing, and they don't have a lot of skill. I mean, they have skills, but they're not experienced.
Yeah.
So then I have these guys who are inexperienced who can test what I'm trying. So what I decided, I love shooting pigs, and I've never given up on them. And I was really struggling about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer. We have deer feeders. They're right there. The distance is known. You can wait for the right shot. And I was just not killing as many as, I was 50% at one time.
Yeah, okay.
Nobody wants to admit that, but I will, because it's the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a truth and facts guy. So I was shooting 400, 450 grain arrows, mechanicals, and the mechanicals were either crime scene or nothing. There was never a okay blood trail leading up to a pig. It was either spray, fantastico, or gone. And I said, okay, I'm not doing that. I went to fixed blades, finally went to a Magnus 2-blade. I started killing a few more, and especially the big ones were the biggest challenge. When I finally got a big, 4, 5, 6-year-old boar in front of me, they just seemed to eat the arrows and run off. And I said, I have guns. You give me a 243 with a 100 grain bullet, I'll shoot them in the ear. Nothing runs. I don't care how big they are.
Yeah.
They go down, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, there's got to be something this isn't efficient enough, because they're right there. If I was stalking, if it was a little more dynamic, but they're right there. You're sitting in a tripod, they're right there. So I read Dr. Ashby's study. I'm a board member of the Ashby Bowhunting Foundation. And this is a long time ago. And I don't really care what people think about me. So I wandered off by myself, learned to bare shaft a stick bow. I built a 670 grain arrow with the grizzly 3-inch long, 1-inch wide head that he shot all of his buffaloes with in the testing. It's a 27-year study studying one thing: arrow penetration. That's all Dr. Ashby studied, and it was all with a stick bow.
Gotcha.
So I get it flying. It's flying bare shaft, perfect out to 20 yards. I fletch them up and I go hunting. And I say, I need a test pig. Give me a 100-pounder. No. To date, the biggest pig I ever shot on the ranch. We don't have huge ones. 265 guts in hanging. I have a scale. So that's a huge pig on our place. Some places have bigger ones because of agriculture and that kind of thing. It is what it is.
Yep, for sure.
However, I have a lot of experience losing them. I'm stalking. I wander up on this great big pig, and I get 17 yards from him, and pigs can't bend. Like a deer can pick its head up and bend its head towards you or whatever. Pigs go like this when they turn. They just rotate like a drum. He looks at me like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He's 54 pounds, and I am concerned.
Yeah.
Not for my safety, I just don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
He turns toward me, and I remember I was on my knees, and I said, if Dr. Ashby's right, this is going to work. And I shot him right there, and there was a tiny chut sound, and the arrow disappeared into his body.
Yep.
It penetrated 5 feet of pig.
Yep.
And the broadhead popped out of his ham.
Yep.
He spins around 3 times. I'm standing there. This is not a normal experience. I'm used to walk.
Yep.
And half the arrow sticking out.
Yep.
It just made this tiny sound and went through him. He runs off. We gave him 2 hours. Blood trail was decent, and we ended up finding him. And I said, I'm not going back. That arrow was going 140 feet per second.
Yep.
And just plumb through him. In the hard part of the shoulder here. Not a broadside shot, nothing.
Yep. Yeah.
The arrow was inside of him when we cleaned it. It didn't break off. It was in it.
Yeah.
So I just started testing on my own. And I said, well, if this works, let's do it with a compound and use the, I leveraged the deer feeders to shoot live shots and test a bunch of things. And as I've gone up in forward mass, perfect arrow flight, I'll never stop saying that, and higher quality cut-on contact, hand sharpenable, hair popping sharp, which that's a skill in and of itself. Broadheads, I go out there now and I sound like an ass, but it's over.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
It's really a different experience.
Yeah. It's kind of the same as, and I know you don't like FMJs, and I understand why now, but like,
This is the worst arrow ever.
yeah, but like I was saying to you is the only thing that I can thank them for, and I mean that's probably the reason we're talking actually, is because they taught me that heavy's good, right? Like I can tune an arrow to fly good too, so you know that was good. And the arrows I took to New Zealand over February were dialed in nicely, and I shot a fallow deer at 40 meters and it jumped the string, but I smashed it in the spine, and the same as like your pig, it came out the other side, and I was like,
Yep.
holy shit, all right then, you know, like that was kind of a bit of an eye-opener for me. I was like, yeah, everything I shot with them that trip was just, they were like butter basically.
The funny thing about the Full Metal Jacket is you can take let's just say a normal 300 spine Full Metal Jacket. The weakness of the Full Metal Jacket is the micro bends, and then the hit insert is absolutely the worst insert for impact on the planet.
Yeah.
If you're going to shoot a Full Metal Jacket, you need to get the RPS or they made a Broadhead adapter ring. You wonder why they made that? Because those shafts tend to blunderbuss, so they made a protector for it. So do that, upgrade your inserts. But what I suggest is weigh that arrow and then buy a real carbon arrow with a real insert, and it'll be much lighter. And then take the almost equivalent amount of weight and put it in the front.
Yeah.
So you won't lose your trajectory or anything, but you'll still end up with a 500, 520 grain arrow, but it's forward loaded, which puts a lot more weight in the front of the arrow on impact. You have 200 grains in a spot this big for impact, but it's the same overall mass.
Yeah, I got you.
I've done it for about 5 different people if you bring an FMJ to the ranch, you don't shoot them.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched your Hunting Public show. I think
I have an arrow sponsor, so you'll have arrows. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It's all good. No, that's cool. Yeah, so like I was saying, is that's kind of what I have the FMJs to thank for, and I actually must have been lucky. I haven't really had any of those bad experiences with them, so
that's good. That's good. It's the only one I've ever seen consistently blunderbuss, break the tip off. I had a friend shoot 3 different bores with Full Metal Jackets and mechanicals before we knew what was going on.
Yeah.
This is 10 years ago. We didn't know. They were broken about this far from the end.
Yeah.
And sheared to the side, and it was a bonk. The pigs are fine.
Yeah.
They got a broadhead in them.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough penetration to do anything to them. And we didn't understand what was going on. And if he had a normal insert in there, I think he'd have been okay. Well, I don't know. He might have hit hard spots. Night shooting is a very different experience. It's not the same. Nothing looks the same in the dark.
No.
So if you guys are going to hunt at night, you really need to shoot at night.
Yeah.
If you're shooting pigs, get a black target with no spots and get your senses used to it. I take people all the time. They say, okay, I'll just shoot in the dark, and I'm like,
But I mean, I don't know. Are you allowed to use rifles at nighttime where you are?
Do what?
Are you allowed to use rifles at nighttime where you are too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They don't care on pigs,
guns,
bombs, helicopter. I've done it out of a helicopter.
Yeah.
They don't care what you kill them with.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
It's fine.
Yeah, but no, that about night shootings, something that was kind of weird for me because it's quite common in New Zealand, go spotlighting for possums and stuff like that. So coming overseas and learning you're not allowed to do a lot of shooting at nighttime was quite taken back by that. But you're right, like even with a rifle, when you first start trying to find the target in your scope in the dark is kind of a challenge, So
I've got some lights that are mounted on top of the scope, and if you get them lined up, it's relatively easy, but still. Pigs are dark colored. Goats that are white and stuff would be a little easier. But with a red light and a pig what I've seen is their shadow gets long.
Yep.
You don't know it.
Yep.
But I put people on the sticks and we're 60 yards away, and I'm like, it's right there.
Yeah.
And I can see the light is on them, and they can't see them.
Yeah.
Because it's just a long black shadow, and then it'll move, and they'll say, oh, bap.
Yeah.
Initially, they don't see them. And with a bow and arrow, it can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
The biggest detriment to night shooting is multiple pins.
Yeah, okay.
If you have a Christmas tree of pins, you're going to be blinded.
You can't see
all
it
that light
through them.
bounces back at you. Your pupils get big, and it's like an f-stop on a camera. Most people could relate to this when they put that background fade on Zoom or whatever. That's how your vision becomes, and you can't see past it.
Yeah, gotcha.
And the pigs become just a blob, and I get a lot of bad shots out of that. So one pin, really, really small. But.
Yeah. I mean, we always learn to look for the eyes at night, and I think it's basically what you were talking about. The same thing is like if you hold, for instance, a spotlight down by your chest, you might not see the eyes glowing. Like you really have to be looking straight down the beam of the light properly to spot the animals, and that's how my dad taught me to do it. And it's as long as the animal's looking at you, you can't miss it basically. So
y'all get to shoot so much stuff. Y'all are lucky over there getting to blast everything. I mean, you get a really high level of testing material.
Yeah.
Just given y'all situation with no predators and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic environment for what we're talking about, especially with the bow arrow.
Yeah.
I mean, far none.
Yeah, the only thing is, I don't think you're allowed to feed the pigs. You're not allowed to have bait stations in New Zealand, from what I remember. Anyway, it's been a little while now, but because it's seen as like kind of looking after them.
Yeah, we're definitely hurting our fight against the pigs by having deer feeders. You're feeding the piss out of them. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah,
it's a all they can eat buffet the whole time. So
Mm-hmm.
Now that's cool. So something I was always kind of wondering is a heavy arrow that's balanced well or flies perfectly. Will that perform the same still as like say an arrow of equal weight but it has a higher FOC? Does that make sense? Like, so if the arrow is tuned properly, from what I understand, it should hit correctly, and then the FOC shouldn't matter too much. Is that correct?
That is not what Dr. Ashby's studies are showing. Now we're talking about 10 to 20%. We're not talking 100% difference.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But he has 12 factors to create the perfect arrow. And each one of them compared in the group, like in structural integrity, if the broadhead doesn't break, it's way better. Perfect arrow flight, way better. Then forward to center is the next one. And forward to center, a higher forward to center arrow versus an arrow of the same mass, but balanced. Let's say it's a 10% arrow, like a normal arrow. And FMJ is a perfect example. A full metal jacket with 125 grain point is probably a 10% forward to center arrow. Mm-hmm. If you rebuild that arrow and go to a lighter arrow and push 80 grains to the front or 70, which you've taken out of the arrow, but it's the same.
Yep.
The higher forward to center arrow will outperform on penetration, perfect arrow flight, of course, on both shafts. Mostly, we believe it's because of the possibility of impact paradox.
Yeah. Okay.
And remember, you're concentrating 200 or 300 grains in a space that big, and it starts pulling. The shaft, the very light shaft, becomes a tail on a very heavy projectile.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas you're spreading out a 28, 30-inch arrow, you're spreading that mass out, and it's everywhere. So I always use this analogy. We've all probably handled a hammer and hit a nail. And if you don't hit it plumb from behind, it goes cattywampus.
Yeah.
No bones square, animals jump, angles of the animals change the impact and ability for the arrow to drive. So it's not 100% gain. It's just arrow to arrow, it's 10 or 15%. Perfect arrow flight's 10 or 15%. Structural integrity is humongous. Don't break. Your broadhead can't shatter, can't blunderbuss the point. And it starts to add up.
Gotcha.
And it's an equation, right? It's an equation.
I gotcha.
That creates a high penetration arrow.
Yeah. So like, just so I'm trying to understand this then, with the example I put forward, if you have the higher FOC instead of like a perfect total weight, you're reducing the chance of things going wrong as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I
And
gotcha.
it really does. The broadheads make a huge difference. I'm going to start chanting this on my channel, on the Ranch Ray channel. I've really been tinkering around with 200 grain broadheads a lot this year, and they're just different.
Yeah.
The steel's different. The actual steel they make them out of is different. They're thicker.
Yes.
They hold their edge better.
Yep.
So, and that's what kills them.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, there's a ton of information on bow to target, right? There's not a lot of discussion. It's an assumption that the broadhead's going to work. But if it can't handle what it's going to hit, scapulas, I mean, we're all human. We're going to make mistakes.
Of course. Yeah.
On a perfect hit, the mechanical stuff works great. I'll never stop saying that. I've done it. I've done it. I shot a black wildebeest in Namibia with the original Rage 100 years ago when it was first out. I told the PH, I said, if it runs off, you're paying for it. He goes, it ain't going to run off. And I said, okay, here comes some black wildebeest. That one right there.
Yeah. Nice.
And I shot him right over the top of the elbow in the heart with a Rage. It stuck in the other shoulder and blood shot out 2 feet.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And I bought a bunch of them, and then the pigs laughed at me.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. You got a lucky shot then.
Yeah, no, it was a perfect shot.
Yeah,
it was a perfect shot. Hit the greater vessels above the heart, buried in the other shoulder, blood shot out. But let's just be honest, any broadhead on earth, that particular shot was about this far above the humerus bone. It would have been devastating. But because it made a humongous wound, the blood really came out of it.
Yeah,
but I don't think the tracking job would have been any different. It went 80 yards and it was down.
I gotcha.
It is what it is.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, no, it's just talking about shot placement quickly. Actually, I was saying I came from a rifle background, and we always just aim for the shoulder. And then when I changed to the bow world and I started watching videos, it's like, oh, they all aim behind the shoulder, And I was like, oh, this is. I just started doing what other people were doing, right? Because I assumed it was the right thing to do. But I'm glad I saw your video as well about shot placement, and it just it just makes sense. Like there's nothing really there as long as you're shooting in the right spot that's going to stop an arrow. So I don't. The only thing I'll say is that I shot a whitetail in Finland a couple of weeks ago, and I had it perfectly, in that nice little triangle part. They don't tend to the meat straight away in Finland, and so a lot of the blood leaked out through both shoulders actually and spoiled a bit of the shoulder meat. But that's neither here nor there. The deer didn't go very far, but yeah, that's the only reason I'm rethinking about if I want meat animals is putting it just behind the shoulder again. But in terms of stoppage, I definitely can't. I don't think you can beat aiming for that shoulder really. Well, when I say the shoulder, I don't mean shoulder blade. Sorry, let me just clarify there. Just where I'm talking about, just where the front leg joins the animal.
So, well, I'll do this. I'm a simple guy.
Yeah, that
This is the humerus bone.
Yep.
And this is the shoulder blade.
Yep.
You see this? That's the elbow on a whitetail deer. Any animal on earth, their leg goes here, and there's that little elbow there, and here's the crease.
Yep.
That V on an elk is the size of half a basketball. If you can't hit that, don't go.
Yeah.
And on a deer, it's more than softball size, and it's just the rib cage. What's back there is the major vessels coming off of the heart, the pulmonary system, and the aortic trunk. So I'm a respiratory therapist, and I had a cadaver in school, and I had actually got to work on a human being for 6 months, which is really weird and super awesome because you really understand where a spleen is when you have a human to work on.
Yep.
And you want to put them down efficiently. So there's two arguments the other way. If you hit one kind of back intentionally, and it takes a while,
I got you.
Is the stress and everything else going to ruin the meat?
Yes.
Like physically change the meat from them being alive longer?
Yep.
I'm not that smart. But when you shoot them through the vital V and they run 42 yards and they fall down, it's over.
Yeah.
And that's as quick as you can get it. So the longer I do this is going to sound completely arrogant. You need to just kill them.
Yep.
We need to not split hairs on
where to place the shot or whatever.
You need to take them forward and knock them and kill them.
Yeah, gotcha.
Bow and arrows are really not that efficient.
Yeah.
If you hit them kind of weird, they can get real long.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So I'm a big advocate of forward and low. And if you go to Africa and you shoot them 3 inches behind the crease, just walk in with your wallet and hand them like $2,000 because you're not getting nothing.
Yeah, I gotcha.
They really do carry their stuff forward.
Yeah. Yeah, but I just found that weird coming from rifles and then going to to the archery world, and everyone was shooting behind the shoulder, and like I say, I just assumed it was because of the way the arrows worked better or something like that. But I don't know why. I don't know why it's like that.
My deer pretty high with a rifle. I shoot them above mid body on the shoulder. I try to spine them.
Yeah,
I break the shoulder blade and spine them. I just shoot pretty high integrity bullets.
Yeah,
I don't want them to dump. They shouldn't run with a rifle.
Yeah, in
my opinion, it's just they're fantastic. I mean, they blow them down. So this is a little bit lower. It's lower 1/3 straight up the leg, and right through there, and you won't have any trouble. They won't go 100 yards.
Yeah.
Even if they don't bleed, which you'll never control a blood trail. I don't care what the television guys tell you. There's no predictability on blood trails. I've not been able to predict it. I've shot a jillion animals with a bow and arrow, and one of them's right from the get-go. It's just take your shoes off and walk down the blood, and the next two are, what? And it looks about the same. But if they go down at 80 yards, you will find them. If they go 150, 180 and run really fast, your blood trail is going to be compromised because of the speed of the travel of the animal. Let's get something fast, like a black buck or something that can really book it.
Yeah.
Pronghorn, right? You hit them kind of wonky and they're running 40 miles an hour. How do you figure there's going to be a tremendous blood trail? It's going to come out and it's going to spray literally off the sides of them like rain.
Yeah. The other thing which I was thinking about too, because I was watching that video too when you're talking about with the not predictable because of all the different layers and stuff. I think a lot of people, and this is just a theory, of course, never really put it to test, but I think a lot of people, they use tree stands and stuff, are shooting high. And so if you don't get that pass throughout the bottom, it takes a long time for the deer to fill up or build up enough pressure for it to start spurting out the top. You know what I'm talking about because of the high entry angle on the animal. So, I mean, it could easily take 100 meters before you get any blood, or even more, especially if it's going fast.
They're more likely to bleed out of their nose in that situation.
Yeah, exactly.
If you step their lungs, it'll come out their face. They're more likely to have that happen than it is to actually pump up, because wherever your entry point is, even on a ground level shot, you need to imagine that you're shooting into a milk jug, a 1 gallon jug. I'm American, so sorry, I'll do liters or whatever. 1 liter jug.
A lot.
And where it's everything below the hole is air.
Gotcha.
And then there's this thing. It's a fact. It's called gravity. It makes us stick to the earth because it's spinning a certain speed and all this stuff from school. So gravity literally pulls the blood down. The whole pulmonary system is air.
Yep.
And it's just something people don't think about. And there's millions and millions and millions of little tiny airways in there. And blood cells travel through them at the molecular level, right? At the smallest single cell level. Mm-hmm. It's all air. So the idea that just because you punch a hole through something, that the blood's going to shoot out the sides, you just got to realize gravity's pulling it downhill. There's tissue in the way. The lungs themselves are impeding the blood from getting out. It's not like cutting a garden hose turned on and you got it cut off on the other end and it sprays out. It's spraying into a container.
Yeah.
That container is also the chest wall, which is shaped like this, right? It's shaped like that. So if your entry point's here, all of this area is going to fill up first before it starts coming out. There's going to be some, if you hit the shoulder meat right, the shoulder meat bleeds pretty good. But as far as this idea that there's always going to be blowing out the sides and all that, if you don't get an exit on a tree stand shot, you should expect no blood trail.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, that's cool. That's kind of what I was trying to get at because, like, one thing I've learned, and you probably the same too, is like coming. Every country you go hunting has their own styles and their own
Yep.
culture, and you have to when you go somewhere, you have to look at how they do it to understand why they do it and stuff like that. And that's what I was starting to think about is the tree stand culture and like getting a blood trail, in a tree stand, if you don't get a pass through, is probably going to be a completely different
It's
kettle of
a
fish.
nightmare. You got
Yeah,
a perfectly dead deer in
yeah,
the upper third at 18 yards, and the arrow's going down like that.
mm-hmm.
They're double lunged and dead.
Yeah,
It's just not going to come out. And then secondarily, if the arrow is in the wound, it's also impeding the actual. It's actually filling up a space in the wound and blocking the blood from coming
yeah.
out. I mean, it's in there like that. It's
Well, I mean, what do they teach you in first aid? If you got something stabbed in you, don't pull it out, right? Because it's going to make it.
right on.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
emergency medicine,
yeah.
in an impeding wound, they leave it in until they get to the. They
Correct.
get
Yeah.
where they pull a bunch of blood, they get ready, they get a surgeon, and then they go. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I was an arborist for 16 years, so we had to do intensive first aid courses for chainsaw
Yep.
cuts and stuff like that, right? So crush injuries and all that other things. So yeah, fun times. Yeah, but anyway, I don't even know where we were now. Flappers. I was telling you, I loved flappers, as you call them, which are expandables, because I'm a tech guy. I like geeky stuff, so it breaks my heart that they're so crap. I'm just gonna say, and I've shot some of the goats in New Zealand with them because they're not very big, right? So I don't know if you just think they're crap for everything, or is it for animals of a certain size, or do you know where I'm coming with this, or because
So I have a couple of problems with them. One is the first problem I have with them is the steel on a lot of them were the crap.
yeah,
And you would never know this until you handle a tough head or you handle, a cutthroat or something, and you learn to strop and hand sharpen a broadhead to a point where not where it will cut your hair and the hair stays on the broadhead, but you learn to cut it till the hair shoots off.
gotcha.
And you just understand what sharp is. My broadheads now, if I can't take a piece, and this is the last 2 years, I really learned how to do this. I get to the point now, the only broadheads I allow to go out in the field, and if I got to sharpen them for people, I sharpen them, at the ranch anyway, it's got to cut newspaper, standing on edge, and just cut it off like that. That's the only ones I'll let go out in the field. Because I've seen such a big change. The second problem with them is the attack angle is horrible. It's like shooting them with a parachute.
Okay.
So I like simple examples. So you got your broadhead flying, and then it hits like that
Gotcha.
on whatever. I mean, like that.
Yep.
I don't know how that's supposed to penetrate. And then the second part is when they deploy, if they come in at an angle, okay, if they hit an animal at an angle, this blade will deploy and hit the meat. This one's still back.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And then once this one touches, it pops open. So what happens is it hits the meat, the arrow shaft deflects. It has nowhere else to go.
I guess it tries to straighten up.
And hits, and it redirects. And the arrows, I think I have no doubt that is why we see such poor penetration with them. And then my other example that I use all the time, when you watch a war movie, have you ever seen anybody run holding the sword like this and go like that and stabbing people with it? No, because they're dead.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. So an angle of attack like this is a very high penetration thing. Dr. Ashby always says, why are wheelchair ramps like that instead of like that?
Well, it's easier.
Because
Yeah.
it's easier to go up. It's a whole lot less work. So we've got a 250 or 70 foot per second projectile hitting, and then this kind of an angle of attack is going to be a lot more efficient driving into wood, bone, just any tool you think about. There's nothing like a mechanical broadhead that I can think of that we use as hand tools. axes are the closest thing for it, but you're splitting wood or chopping chunks out. It's not a penetration device.
No, it's purposely trying to split. Yeah.
Right? So we're slamming a chopping device when it deploys into a very flat surface with rounded bones, and it's very inconsistent. So they go like this when they hit, and that's my biggest argument against them. And I've had terrible luck with them, especially as the animals increase in size.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Those light skinned goats and that kind of thing, maybe, but you go up to a big hog or a big mature whitetail, say 250-pound Midwest chubbo who's been eating corn his whole summer.
Yeah.
They're pretty solid. And then you go to elk, sandbar deer,
Yep.
You start messing with. I cannot wait until the foundation gets enough funding to go back to Australia and shoot a buffalo with a rage.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fantastic. It's just.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hilarious. So. It's all about steel quality and angle of attack, and then you said you're kind of a geeky engineer nerd kind of guy. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yep.
And it just doesn't seem to make well. I know practically it doesn't make sense, but that's a lot to ask. You need those pins to hold. You need the blades not to pop off. You need it to deploy. There's a lot of risky stuff going on when you finally get your shot.
Yep. Yeah.
And you get to hunt time, but a lot of people,
yeah,
if you're in the U.S., the deer season's 10 days long in some states, and they have 4 kids, they get 3 days to hunt. And that's their deer season. That's their whole deer season.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Anyway, basically, in the end, I decided to not do expandables because, I just didn't want to worry if. Does that make sense? Like, fixed blade for me, there's no if about it, really. I mean, maybe you get a bad, shitty Chinese head or something, but yeah, exactly.
If you don't work on your arrows and get that flight right, that's a problem. It's a problem with the flapper as well. But it's just a whole lot less things to worry about. I mean, I saw the difference in me going from mechanical and just putting a Magnus 2-blade cut on contact traditional broadhead on, and all of a sudden my penetration would go up 10 inches.
Yeah.
And I didn't change anything but broadheads to something more efficient.
Yeah.
And that was when I really started killing pigs. All I did was I was shooting a 410 grain arrow, and I dared to go 125 grains. I remember thinking that was crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I'd shoot them and they'd run over and die. And I said, well, that's way better. And then I started increasing forward mass and even bumping up more. Because of the distances we shoot, I shoot 700 grains all the time now.
Yeah, I gotcha.
About 24% forward to center and big, nasty, hand-sharpened broadheads. When I'm going coos deer hunting in January, and I'm probably going to go down, mind blown, to about 630.
Is that purely just to get a little bit more speed?
They tend to shoot a little flatter out to about 40 or 50. I'm not going to shoot much further than that.
Yeah.
A lot of people bomb it at coos deer. I just don't like to shoot more than 40.
Yep.
But 700 is pretty critical. And somewhere around 630, my bow shoots. It's just a real consistent. It doesn't do this.
Yeah. Okay.
It just carries nicer, and my brain sees it better. I mean, I've experimented with a lot of it, and about 500 grains, I actually see more drop, more. It seems to be real fast and then dip at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
More than kind of a consistent, trajectory over distance. I can't prove that. I don't shoot pins, so I shoot an EZV sight, which is a V-shaped sight like this.
You know what, mate? I've been looking at those for a long time. They look like again just something that makes sense. So,
yeah. I have. You're not supposed to admit this. Shh, don't tell anybody.
Okay.
I have ferocious target panic.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible. I draw on a deer with pins. I go, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, go on.
I
gotcha. do it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And it got so bad in the late 90s, I shot trad for a decade.
Yep.
I just sold all my compounds.
Yep.
And then I started shooting just one pin, and I could do okay with that. And then when I saw the EZV sight, I said, that's kind of a combination between trad. It's instinctive, but there's a V.
Yep.
And man, that thing, your brain starts to see how much is supposed to be in between the V. And you just go, yeah, that's about right. And for bow hunting, it has saved my life. Yeah. That thing.
Yeah.
Well, what you all do, sneaking around, no rangefinder.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it'd be good. Yeah, we're using we're giving the UltraView hunting scopes a try at the moment with a single pin, and they're really nice because they're like a precision scope basically for the hunting world. Yep. So I really like them.
The wheel on it, you just adjust the distance with the wheel, or
correct? Yeah, correct. Yeah. On the back of it. So but it's they do, this is weird, but they do a lot of driven hunts in Europe, and you need. In some of the situations I've been in recently, I don't really have time to adjust my scope and stuff like that. So I'm kind of a bit on the fence at the moment about where I want to go with it all. I mean, literally, this is going to sound weird, and I can't even tell you how I did it, but the last deer I shot in the drive, the deer was supposed to come in within 20 for me, and it didn't. It stayed out at 40.
So you just aimed higher?
Mate, dude, I honestly don't know how I did it. But I plugged this deer perfectly. I plugged it perfectly. And, but I couldn't tell you how much holdover it was. I mean, I had been doing a lot of shooting at 40. And I think there's just something still in the muscle memory that goes...
Right, you knew. Like, you kind of knew, right?
Yeah.
You had a picture.
Yeah.
Whatever. Hey, got away with it. Who cares? You're like a little kid. My son Thomas, every time he goes to the ranch and I'm not there, he says, I took a shot at 70 at one big pig. He just bombs. He doesn't care. He's just like, whee! He's got one pin zeroed at 20. And he bombs them all the time. But the frustrating part, and I haven't been able to capture this on video because I don't have a cameraman, we have really, really good springtime spot and stalk pigs. After the winter, so about March, the first rain, it'll green up. And there's no food anywhere, and everything all the pigs come out in the open. And they move all the time. So you may laser one, and it's 38 yards, and then they walk. And at 38, even with any setup, 4 yards is a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are and how fast you're shooting, 38, 40 yards out there, it gets kind of critical. You really need to know the distance. I kept up and down with the stupid rangefinder. Yeah. And I got the EZV sight, and
it's all done.
Nah, they don't. The pigs are not doing well.
Yeah. Okay.
Now it's just you just put it on there and they move, and it's very, very cool tool for hunting.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't shoot competitive 3D or spots or anything. It bores me to death. So I don't know how it would work on that.
Yeah, I gotcha. Cool, man. What was I going to say? Let's go back to the. This is something that's I found, because when I first come across this stuff, I was like, this is kind of scary for me. Like, I don't really know where to start. I think that's a really big issue for a lot of people probably, is that they're scared to, maybe their shop puts their arrows together for them. Like, a lot of people don't actually build their arrows, which, I've only just started doing it, literally in the last 6 months, I think, or something like that. So how do people start doing this, Troy? Like, what's, like budget wise and stuff like that? Is there, is there a kit people can buy to get it going, or do they just have to go through the process, as you say, and there's no other way around it?
Yeah, the biggest challenge, and everybody in Europe and overseas is having enough arrow variety to play with.
Correct.
I shoot a 150 spine arrow on 65-pound bow, and I'm 6 feet tall, so I shoot 28.5 inches. I'm not some gargantuan long-armed guy. I'm a pretty normal sized dude, and it's hard to find 300s and 250s to spine up to the level that it can accurately shoot a broadhead, because field points will lie to you all day.
Yeah, okay.
And it's when you put fixed blade broadheads on, if you're a little under spine, like if I shoot a 340 on my bow, which isn't a screamer, I shoot the Elite Cure. It's not one of the super, it's a very, very forgiving. That's what I prefer. I don't like anything that's really terrifyingly aggressive. I just like nice and boring and choose them. And the biggest challenge is that Serious Archery is my arrow sponsor, and we have a branchberry kit. It has 2 spines cut to your length, 4 arrows. So 2 250s and 2 300s is what I would get if I was doing the kit. They're cut to your length, and then has 100 grain inserts already installed. And then we have kits between 100 and 200 grains and 200 and 300 grains if you really want to go cattywampus up there. If you're going buff hunting or something like that, you need to step up, right? And you literally they're bare shaft, and you go in your yard and shoot them and tinker away and play. And what you end up with when you have 2 spines and 5 different field points, you have 10 different arrows. This is a concept that I got to make more clear. I'm going to do a video on this. When you change the point weight, the spine changes incrementally down.
Okay.
It's not a 250 spine arrow anymore with a 200 grain point on it.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's a 250 spine arrow and a heavy point, and it's probably, 375. I don't know what it is, but every bow shoots different. I have a 5-inch brace height Expedition Excursion 6 that's absolutely a dragster. It is terrifyingly fast, and it will not shoot a 300 spine arrow for me.
Okay.
If I had a bow press and all that crap and twisted the strings and all that and did all that stuff, I could make it work. It only eats 250s for me.
Yeah, okay.
My Cure is slower, more round wheel, less aggressive, outstanding bow, super stable, easy to shoot, and it will shoot a 300 spine arrow up to about 200 grains up front. And then I got to go to a 250, and then I traditionally shoot about 300 to 400 up front.
Gotcha.
So what happens is when you change from 100 to 125 to 150 to 200 grain point, that arrow's flexing different every time. Much like rifles, if you've ever hand loaded, or don't even hand load, just go buy 4 different boxes of ammunition, and one of them will be ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Most guns find a bullet they like, and they throw them well, and they group.
Yep.
My little 223 that I've got 38 names on from kids and people shooting their first animals, I've got them written on the stock, is such a cool gun, hates the X-Bullet.
Yeah.
I wish it would shoot the X-Bullet because it turns that gun into a 270. I've shot some pigs and deer with it, and I've shot deer right through the shoulder blades with it, and it exits, and the hole's about that big, and they collapse.
Yep.
But it shoots groups this big with it.
Yeah, okay.
When I shoot 55 grain soft points, you shoot them in the same pinky size hole.
Yeah, okay.
It's much like that. You get your bow relatively square, you put the breast down the middle, and then you get a couple of different spines of arrows, and you just keep changing the points out, and the spine is constantly changing. The spine is how much the shaft flexes. If it's too stiff, it'll cattywampus to one side, and all of a sudden you'll find this. And sometimes it's 3 or 4 different setups it'll work.
Gotcha.
It's very common. So I call that the hand load process. You're hand loading your bow,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to find what it wants to eat. Listen, a 70-pound bow at 26-inch draw is not the same bow at 31, same draw weight. The power stroke is massive.
Mm-hmm.
The power stroke, for those who've never heard that term, is the difference between, so your brace height's 6 inches, let's just say, and you're pulling 31. Your power stroke is only 25. That's the amount of time it goes up from release to the resting place, which is the 6-inch brace height.
Mm-hmm.
If you're shooting 26-inch draw, it's only a 20-inch power stroke. But the draw weight's the same.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It pushes completely different.
Yep.
Much harder for the long arm guys. So what you can do is keep varying. The long arm guy's probably going to shoot a 250 with a lighter point. Probably.
Mm-hmm.
And the short arm people can shoot a very stiff arrow with a ton of stuff up front.
Yep, I gotcha.
and they'll plumb out. It's something I learned actually shooting trad. That's how you do a trad bow. So trad bows are fixed. You can only raise the brace height. You take the string down, you twist the string, and it gets further or closer to the riser.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And then the knock point can go up and down. That's it. There's no shims, no cams, no flipping the wing dingers, top hats, whatever the hell those are. And with a trad bow, the way I did it, and the super way to do it is decide your point weight, and you start cutting the arrow. And it gets stiffer and stiffer. A full-length arrow will go to the right. You're shooting right-handed. It'll take off and go like that because it's too soft. It's flexing like this and going around the bow and basically doing a big boomerang.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And it gets stiffer and stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, and all of a sudden it runs down the middle. And I said, I wonder if that'll work on a compound. So I don't like a lot of people, and I don't mind not having a lot of friends, so I wandered off by myself, and I'll be damned.
That's weird.
And I was trying to resolve a problem for the average person. Nobody owns a bow press.
Nope.
Not really. The super tinker guys do, and the shops do. And you can take a bow press and lean the cams, take it out of square, and make it shoot any arrow on earth. I understand that. The only trouble is people live 3 hours from a shop. We have this thing called the internet now, and you can order things delivered to your house in 2 days. It's crazy, and it'll be around for a while.
Yeah.
So people want to learn how to do it, and they don't have a press, they don't have a draw board, and they don't really care about all that crap. They just want their bow to shoot straight. So I tried to figure out a way that people could do that. And I would just recommend you spine up. If you're shooting 60 or 65 pounds, you need a 300 spine arrow. Get a few field points. I don't know if they ship over, how much shipping overseas we do at Sirius yet, but Sirius Archery has the Ranch Ray test kits. You can order those and try it. It works for me, and I don't have a bow press. I don't know anything about twisting the strings. I am not a bow guy. Apparently that means I have performance issues. I get bashed about that on the messages and stuff. People are like, well, obviously that guy's an idiot. And I'm like, well, okay. I'm just trying to help the other guys.
Yeah.
No. So that's the way to do it. And even if you're shooting a normal arrow, I would try it. I bare shaft everything.
Yep.
And it's annoying. It's a learning curve like this. You go like this, you start bare shafting, and you go straight up, and you're just sitting there, ah!
Yep.
But if you can get a bare shaft arrow to fly pretty close to perfect, if you can go from it sitting sideways like this and improve it like that, when you fletch it, it's literally not working as hard.
Yeah. And what distance do you bare shaft at?
I bare shafted about 6 or 7 yards.
Okay, I gotcha.
There's a lot of people who back it up further and really get crazy and all that stuff. But what I have discovered, and then I get about 700 messages a month.
Yeah, okay.
On this topic.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says, hey, I like the way you killed that pig, Fowler. Nobody ever says that. They're trying to stab, they're trying to tune, lots of broadhead questions. And personally, for me, my form isn't good enough. I'm a very sloppy shooter. I don't have a peep. I have a kisser button. I pull it back. It hits the corner of my mouth. My nose touches the string, and I turn it loose. I'm really, really sloppy. So if I back up to 20, you can drive yourself into rehab because you really have to be steady out there.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But at 7 or 8 yards, you can shoot, and it'll go in sideways, and the next one will go like this, and all of a sudden one will run down the middle. And you say, okay, and you write that down, and you keep playing with it, and then you'll find this consistency. They may be it may be you,
Yeah.
But don't be too hard on yourself. But if your first one was 5 inches to the right, and then you get one that's 1 inch to the right, you've just improved dramatically.
Yeah.
And then fletchings will help you better.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Because the arrow comes off cleaner.
Yeah. You got a much better foundation to start building the rest of the arrow on if it's already flying properly, I suppose. So, well, the fletch on, and then, because a broadhead has so much more effect on the arrow than a field point does too. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So,
absolutely. That's
yeah.
why the field points are liars, and that's why you need to get pretty
Liars.
close without fletchings, and then fletch them up. Don't shoot broadheads bare shaft; it gets crazy. You better have good form on that. I've tried it.
Yep.
And then the fletchings can just help correct for mistakes. Cold, you got to pee. It's been a long day. You run up and down the mountain, that kind of stuff. That's when the fletchings need to help. They shouldn't be correcting for a terrible arrow from the get-go, because then it accelerates. Well, no, it's exponentially worse when you're under stress and shooting from your knees or trying to go like this over a branch, and the arrow's crazy, which you can solve that at home. I get these. I see these all the time. I had to delete most of the people who do this because they talk about getting their reps in every day. They're going to shoot. They're just damned and determined to shoot 50 arrows a day or 100.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I think that contributes significantly to target panic. But secondarily, I always wonder: are the arrows good? Are the arrows so good that it's not you? Or do you have to literally be in a perfect position to get that arrow to fly right, and your release has to be perfect? I think that is a detriment to bow hunting, because nothing bow hunting is ever perfect. You don't get warm-up shots. You don't get to shoot at it 3 times at the same distance.
Yeah.
You don't.
No.
You get one shot.
Yep.
And it may be a week. You may be trundling around in the mountains for a week. You get your one shot, and that's your elk hunt.
Yeah.
Right? So if your arrows aren't really good and aren't flying really good, you've put yourself in a situation where it's unlikely that you're going to hit where you're aiming. It seems very linear to me. I stopped arguing with people when they smack me around about this stuff. I just don't engage anymore.
Yeah.
I can't get over the fact that a really good flying arrow, when you make kind of a little mistake, will be a whole lot less off track than a really bad flying arrow that you're trying to correct for. And you've got to have back tension, and your back's. One of my friends told me the other day, yeah, I missed this deer because, I shoot with back tension. I don't even know what that means. And he describes it to me. He said, yeah, you pull with your back through the string and then the bow goes off. And I said, yeah, but what if the deer turns? Well, that's what happened. Okay, well, I just shoot.
Yeah, I gotcha.
He came from a target background, and targets don't move.
Yep.
You've got all the day in the world. You got time to twist your peep in line and all that stuff. And I'm not making fun of him. It seems like a lot to do for a hunting situation where things may have to go down quick.
Yeah. The only thing about, because it's the same, that's how I got taught to shoot here too, is pull through the trigger. The only thing for me I find it helps is to stabilize the bow a little bit in my form. But
I agree with that.
Yeah, but towards the end, especially if the situation's right, I will not punch the trigger, but definitely squeeze it instead of leaving the.
You shoot when you need to.
Precisely. Yeah, exactly.
That's what happen. I know why there's back tension. I get that for targets and stuff.
Yeah.
When you really have to be accurate, I do get a kick out of the guys who shoot 3D competitively, and they all have 38-inch bows.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be really handy.
Don't tell anybody. They shoot really long, stable, boring bows. Accurate.
Tell them to go in a tree stand and have a go at one of those. Yeah.
And then they get a 28-inch jumpy, hateful mother-in-law hunting bow that shoots okay when they need to kill a deer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's pretty funny. A
lot of the guys shooting spots shoot a lot of forward to center. They've got these tips that go in the shaft, and you can't tell how much weight they're shooting.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Don't tell anybody that.
Okay, I gotcha.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them shoot 150 or 200 grain points because they're more accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because I think the longest Olympic range is 50 meters, isn't it? If I'm not correct. So you definitely.
I don't know which one it is. Recurve. Some of them bomb way the hell out there, but anyway, it doesn't matter. 50 is a long way.
Yeah. So I mean, of course, you're going to want that stability, especially if there's a little bit of wind or whatever kicking across the course. So. Yeah.
Yeah. They tend to track. I mean, the high forward to center arrows, I've shot them in 25-mile-an-hour crosswinds, and The arrow flies a little bit like this, but the point stays on. It doesn't blow as a unit like that. It tends to fly, which would seem to be counterintuitive for impact. Because we talked about impact paradox. It's going to be a little cattywampus, but if it doesn't track, if the broadhead goes off 2 feet,
yeah,
I kind of would rather have the broadhead go in where it's sort of close. There's so many dynamic things. I hate bow and arrows. You and I talked about this earlier. I could zero a 300 Win Mag 2 inches high at 100 and send it to you, and you could kill deer for animals till you're dead.
Yep.
I can't do that with a bow and arrow.
No.
They're very custom.
Yep.
And they're annoying. They're annoying as hell. It's one of the biggest challenges we've had. I've tried to work with a couple of bow companies to do a kit, full bow and everything. And if you're not shooting it, it's not tuned.
Yeah.
It's damn close. If you can find somebody, the problem is, if you're a 26-inch draw and a guy 6'2" sets it to 26 and then tunes it, he's going to be gripping it, It's just not going to be the same.
No, not at all.
Probably better than not doing anything, though. I got to give them that.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of guys they're trying to help, and it's good for the business.
Yeah, for sure. What do you reckon the main resistance is for people to give this a try? Is it, do you think they're losing some sort of macho ego things usually in the way, or because really when it comes down to it, from what I can see, people are not really arguing against you. It's physics. You can't really argue against physics. It's physics is physics, and so I find it really goddamn annoying and frustrating to see the comments. I don't understand how people don't really you know what I'm saying? Is where do you think this resistance comes from?
It's just the years and years and years, and the TV guys aren't on board yet.
Yeah.
It's literally a thing called groupthink. I'm what's known as a disruptor.
Okay.
And that's what happens when a company gets too big, and then some guy comes up with an idea, and they say, "Hey, maybe we ought to try this." And there's this guy named Steve Jobs who came up with this computer thing that everybody carries around now.
Yeah.
And he was a disruptor, and they told him he was crazy, and it turned out he wasn't crazy. And that's an extreme example, but it happens all the time. So you see on television, everybody's pretty successful, and it's just the way the industry is. And you know what? Some of this is just humans.
Yeah.
We really don't like to stick out.
Yeah, okay.
Nobody wants to be different, even if the results are different. And I don't care. I really want to help the bow hunting world become more effective. We need to make sure that our wounding loss rates are very low.
Yeah.
One of these days, they're coming.
Yeah.
The guns are first. Everybody knows that, right?
Well,
the guns are first.
Yeah.
The war on guns, blah, 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 around the world.
Yeah.
Got that. Bow hunting is hiding over here and not really being attacked yet. There's some PETA people doing it, but it's not as focused because the guns and the violence and all that, right? And that's going to be the first thing they're really pushing against. That's good. That's going to have its challenges.
Yeah, yeah, for
but
sure.
If we don't get our wounding rates down, then it's not going to help our cause one of these days if somebody decides to go study it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, bow hunting's illegal in Sweden. It's illegal in Norway. Bow hunting's been going so well in Finland, though, that they're thinking about allowing moose onto the species list, I think, next year.
Oh, would that be awesome?
Yeah, it would be really awesome. And
they just opened Russia last year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was because of the Ashby Bowhunting Foundation.
Oh,
we were
nice.
part of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
we were part of the we used the study as part of the documentation to open Russia.
Yeah, okay.
And then a little known fact that Dr. Ashby would never tell anyone, because he's one of the most humble men I've ever met in my life. You would think a guy who studied this for 27 years and killed multiple gigantic things, including 2 rhinos with a longbow, would tell everybody to go smoke it. They're idiots. But that's not the way Dr. Ashby plays. He's a very cool dude. And they don't ever tell this story. But the reason that the study is called the Natal study is because 3/4 of the African continent was closed to bow hunting in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
He did the Natal study, and one reason why the Ashby Foundation or the Ashby study is written as a white paper with graphs and charts and et cetera, which this is way before Google. So I don't, the charts in there, you look at them and go, wow, he really worked hard at that, because you couldn't just do that like we can now.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It was the actual paper that opened Africa.
Yeah, okay.
They used that study to open up most of Africa.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. We might need some help in Sweden then, to be honest with you, because basically that's what we're fighting against. And you know, it's really sad. Even the rifle hunters over here are fighting against us because they think kind of what the reverse of what you were saying actually is that we might compromise their hunting rights, basically.
Well, that's probably part of it. Right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be that.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that. There's always the crossbow argument. Don't let the crossbows in the bow hunting. I don't care.
Yeah.
Let's stop fighting the hunters.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I don't understand it. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You want to shoot a 300 Win Mag, fine. You want to shoot a bow and arrow, fine. You want to shoot an X-bow. Listen, crossbows are great. There's a lot of debilitated people out there, people with bad shoulders, busted up, fell off of buildings and crunched themselves, and they're not in great shape. And a crossbow gives them a chance to get close.
Mate, I used one in PA, and they're impressive. They are impressive. Yes, oh my God! I seen a punch this doe, and it basically disappeared out her noose. It was just straight onto me. So yeah, I was mightily impressed with it. Yeah.
Well, then maybe are you involved with the Swedish fight to get the bow hunting thing, or do you know
a little bit? But they don't like me because I like basically decisions in Sweden are made with feelings rather than facts, and it pisses me off. So yeah, but yeah, definitely. Like one of the guys that's in my club, he's actually a ecologist, and he's helping putting the papers together.
Have him reach out to me.
Yeah, okay.
Send him my address. I'll put him in touch with Rob Nielsen. So we've partnered with Texas Parks and Wildlife and 4 or 5 countries in Africa. Mm-hmm. We helped open Russia.
Yep.
And we can at least give them a study that talks about. Yeah. I mean, it's 27 years and 1,000 animals.
Yeah.
It's not 13 animals and sponsored by XYZ. There's no sponsors. There's no BS. It's straightforward. Maybe we can help.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help.
Geez, that'd be perfect. Yeah. Because
I'd love to see them say, you can do this, but you got to shoot a 650 grain arrow with a single
you know, it's actually really funny. As one of the early people that I was listening to over here, I mean, this is how crazy you know, the fact that I am where I am now is. He said, "Oh, don't get FMJs; they're too heavy." So I think you kind of can understand, and you know, they all use NAP Spitfires and all that sort of stuff. So it's there's a lot of battles going on over here, to be honest with you. So
it's raging here. I've been very surprised. I thought I would go on YouTube, hide in a hole, have 800 subscribers, and a humongous following of 800 people who said this really works, and it just went nuts.
Yeah.
It just went. I cannot believe what has happened. I figured it was just going to be me doing my thing. I don't care what people think. This works, and I would never become any. I didn't think anything would happen. And when I got to know the hunting public guys, it really took off. Thanks to them, I really got exposed to a ton of people and a ton of young people, which is really fun. They're in their 20s.
Yep.
If you haven't seen the Hunting Public channel,
I watched them. They're good. Yeah,
they're great. They're great guys. They're raised right. They came to the ranch with me. They're easy to hang out with. They're just like they are on camera. There's no front, and then they're a bunch of idiots in the background.
Yeah, 100%.
And I get so many emails from kids, and I call them kids. I'm 50, so if you're 30 years old, you're a kid. And they're like, "Yeah, dude, I'm trying this." Yeah. And so what I've done is I just written off all the old guys.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, you're probably thinking that it's the right train of thought there. Actually, to be honest with you, get that newer generation coming through on the right path. And so, yeah.
I did a podcast with Cuz Strickland, And he and I were laughing. I said, yeah, I've pretty much written off all you old guys that have been around doing this a long time. And he just started cracking up laughing. He goes, you're probably the right guy to do that, because all we say is, man, I've been shooting deer for 100 years. We know. He's such a good dude. He's a great guy.
Shooting deer and barefoot
really
in the snow.
But it's been encouraging to hear kids who are, excuse me, still quite open-minded and wanting to try something different. Yeah. To give it a go, and at least try. That's where I can have an impact, and it's really, really fun.
Yeah,
it's fun to get the pictures back. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of pictures of people said I've never shot through a deer.
Yeah, I got you.
And then how many people I had said I thought I missed, because these real high structural integrity broadheads don't make a lot of noise on impact.
Yeah,
and they said, I thought I missed, and then the deer fell over. Yeah, I said, I guess I didn't miss. It's super rewarding.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's been fun to see it take off.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
It's going to be good for the sport.
Yeah, I think probably, I mean, because I'm a community manager in real life, so I kind of have to deal with a lot of the online psychology stuff, if that makes sense to you. And
yeah, of course.
Like a lot of the people we deal with are hunters in real life too. And I get the feeling, mainly from the American crowd, actually, that a lot of them kind of just blindly follow their dad around. And you know what I mean? So I feel like maybe that's actually where a little bit of the when I talk about blindly follow your dad, of course, if you're 14 or you're 16, whatever, you're going to do that still. But like at some stage, I kind of, if you're out here and you're like, F you, TK, I love my dad. It's good. You love your dad, but like start thinking for yourself just a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's physics, man. It's not. And this is the thing
I simplify it greater than that.
Yeah.
If what you're doing is kind of wonky and not working great, what in the hell do you have to lose?
Yeah, exactly. You can always go back to your own system.
Take your current setup. If you're not happy, you're getting half an arrow penetration, you're having long nights, it's always stressful. The deer run like the wind every time you shoot them. Set those aside. Keep them. Don't throw them away. You can always go back. I don't know what you have to lose trying it.
No, exactly.
Learn to sharpen broadheads. Take some time to bear shaft. See if you can get away with it. Go ahead and shoot a 550 grain arrow out to 40 yards and see how bad it is, because it ain't. Let me tell you something. What you do is you move your pins. And 20 is 20, 30 is 30, and 40 is 40. Guess what's in between? 5 yards.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's no different.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit more space in between.
Yeah.
And often not. What's been amazing is 150 grain jump at 20 yards is about 1.5 inches low.
Sorry, run that one. What did you say? Sorry, I missed it.
I've taken multiple people who are shooting 420 grain standard arrows, and I'll give them a 300 spine arrow that weighs 525 or 550. Let's say they bump 125 grains. It's maybe 1.5 inches low at 20.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
And I think I need to find some smart people, because I'm not real smart. So I think the bows with a really light arrow have extra horsepower.
Light with extra. Okay.
I don't know if that's possible, but it seems to me that's why they have the vibration dampers and all this other stuff, trying to quiet the bows down for a very light arrow system. I think there's extra juice there. And so what happens is when you put the heavier projectile on there, it says, hey, and it just pushes it harder. I don't even know if that quantifies, but I will tell you this. At 800, my bow pushes back.
Yeah, okay.
At 1,000, it recoils. But at 1,000 grains, you hit your release, and the bow goes. I mean, you feel it go. Wah! I mean, it's really like it's overloaded. It's hilarious. So if that's happening to me, if it's like pulling hard against my hand, I think the transverse works.
Yeah, okay.
I think at 390 grains, there's extra push that's there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. They must be able to measure that somehow, because you'd think logically, right, if you're holding a heavy riser, for instance, energy tries to get out the easiest way possible, usually, right, in most situations.
That's correct.
Yeah,
right.
So you would think that it would transfer better into the arrow. That's just how I think about it, but I don't know.
It'd be interesting to know if you could figure out a way to test a bow to find the sweet spot weight wise, because there probably is a horsepower measurement where that bow is maximum efficiency.
Yeah.
I would think so, because they do it with cars and stuff, race cars and all that stuff, right? They change the gears and do all this stuff to get everything they can out of the engines. It's just two wheels. And is there a point where the bow is perfectly pushing as hard as it possibly can, and then 50 grains over that, it's overloaded, right? I don't know that. I know that with my bow at 600 grains, the trajectory is just, it doesn't do that. It's a nice, consistent carry out to 50. It's weird.
You really got me thinking now.
Measure that.
Nah.
But somebody smart will come along and teach me all that stuff.
Yeah. I often wonder too how much, the angles of the, what do you want to call them, supports and the risers dictate where the energy gets funneled to. So I don't know if that's something to do with it too, but.
I don't know anything about it. I don't know enough about engines. I know how to fix a lot of things, but I don't know how engines work themselves, and I don't know anything about the mechanical engineering side of horsepower and all that stuff. I just know, like I said, 1,000 grains, the bow pushes back. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, you got me thinking now. Yeah.
It's really fun to shoot 1,000 grains. I mean, it's like archery. It's archery, man. It's critical. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You can shoot them anywhere with that thing. It's bomb.
But
the first time I shot 1,000 and it pushed back, I went, what the heck is that? Right? I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just think with all the dampers and all the adjustments they made to make the bows quiet for shooting light arrows, is it's got to be wasted energy. What else is it?
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's got to be. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know, but it's just it'll never stop. It's one of the reasons why archery is so difficult. There's so many little nuances to it, and if we can figure out a lot of things, make it a simpler sport for more individuals on their own, that's my goal.
Yeah.
I'm a high forward center guy, I'm an adult broadhead guy, perfect arrow flight guy, got that. I'm a penetration, that's all I care about, got that. I'm trying to transmit that message to make a normal person in their backyard be able to increase their effectiveness with fixed blade broadheads. That's it. All the chatter on the message boards and all that, and they can sit there and slice and dice and pick it apart and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't care.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was about the 9th animal I'd shot in New Zealand on the last trip, and like I say, everything else I passed through, I'd already smashed that deer's spine and stuff like that, and one of the last goats I shot, I decided to Texas heart shot it, just because, I was like, I think this is going to work, and sure enough, it did. Which, I will never do that again, but I was curious, and I wanted to see if it worked, and it did. It went in just underneath its butt and came out, just sort of through its lungs out the top of its chest. So, yeah, and like I was saying, is that whole trip, I was like, heavy arrows are good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's some real penetration there, when you can just full length shoot through an animal.
Yeah.
And like I said about Nervous Ned, if your arrow would have only gone in half length, you'd have been to the liver.
Yep.
And the hole would have been plugged with the guts because you shot through the stomach.
Yep.
So there's no blood trail. It's a liver hit. They take a while, and the animal can run. Maybe it was a give up and just fall over, and it got didn't like what happened to it. That could be possible, but worst case scenario is it's up on its feet for a very long time.
Yeah.
But you've got another 2 feet of penetration, and that didn't occur. You got to the lungs, and that's the game.
Yeah.
That's where it really, the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, we got a couple of questions here from some of the people in the community, and like I tried to pull out what was many as I could, really. So, do you achieve the same results if you use a common broadhead, say 100 grains, and add inserts as you do with using a heavy broadhead? So I think what they're saying is like, can you achieve the same results by just having a heavier broadhead, or do you need to have the heavy inserts? Is that, doesn't matter where you put the weight in the front, I think is probably what he's trying to ask here.
Traditionally, no. You have to, you do have to work on your perfect arrow flight with that system. So if you are going to bear shaft, you want to put that heavy insert in there, put the 100-grain point on there, get it flying right. So that has to happen. Always will be. You'll never hear me say anything different. The thing I am seeing with folks who choose not to upgrade their broadhead quality to a 200-grain broadhead, shoot lighter inserts, is the actual broadhead themselves.
Okay.
So the 100-grain broadheads are traditionally, there's only one way to make them lighter. Thinner blades, lighter material, shorten them up, light, everything.
Gotcha.
On impact, you have your structural integrity goes down.
Yep.
So yes, the answer is the flight can be fine. But I've seen some of the lower weight broadhead blades and stuff folding up and all that stuff when it's getting pounded in there.
Mm-hmm.
You hit something hard. So if you hit, let's say you hit a humerus, let's say you hit a 4-blade muzzy, and you glance off the humerus, those two bottom blades are going to be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
You shoot them with a 200-grain S7, hand sharpened monolith, it'll cut the bone and keep going and be sharp.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the rubber meets the road on the lighter broadheads. The flight will be fine.
Yeah.
But I found that they can't handle the impact.
Yeah.
As well. On bad hits, remember, on perfect hits, none of this matters.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But I'm human, and sometimes I make mistakes.
Yeah, I gotcha. I guess that makes sense. Like if you're putting the weight behind the squishy broadhead, that squishy broadhead's the one that's taken the brunt of the impact. So, it's got to support all the force behind it.
Of course. Yeah. That's exactly.
So cool. Yeah.
Physics.
Yeah, physics. Yeah. Damn it. So I think you answered this before, but someone wants to know, what is the biggest deer you've shot?
I shot a 10-point deer. He's right there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know how big you can see that.
Yeah,
but whatever.
That's good.
He's 155 inches. I put him in the book and all that arrogant crap about 15 years ago, and then I've just quit hunting them. Due to the family, my kids, I killed that deer when my kids were in diapers, and then I raised them basically on the ranch, and I really have a lot of fun with kids. I mean, it's super, there's nothing better than taking some 7-year-old. It can be a deer like that.
Yep.
I don't care. They're thrilled. They're happy as hell.
Yeah.
So I went down that rabbit hole, and I coached baseball for 10 years, and it cut into my deer hunting. So, yeah, I'm back at him.
Yep.
That's the biggest one I've shot. He's a really, really good deer.
Yeah, I got
I
you.
don't know if I'll beat him. Hopefully I can find a bigger one. But
That's beautiful, man. That's really nice. Here we go. What is the biggest issue you see most people make when building a new arrow setup?
They don't take the time to bear shaft and tinker around and learn how to get their arrows flying perfect. It's the biggest behind sharp broadheads. The biggest thing on the planet right now is poor or arrow flight. Mm-hmm. I haven't found a fletched paper tune to be as good as a bear shaft tune, and bear shaft tuning can be maddening. If you have a drug problem or you're on the edge of a drug problem, don't. It's just gonna. If you have a drinking or possible moderate problem, don't bear shaft. Go ahead and fletch tune. You'll be fine. But the first time I ever tried to bear shaft a compound, it took me three times over 3 days, and I just kept moving the rest around, jacking around, and the rest needs to be running down the middle. But that's when I started tinkering with point weights and different spines and dared to spine up. And I just kind of went, what do I have to lose? If it doesn't work, I have an arrow that shoots, mm-hmm. right? If this doesn't work, what the heck? The second detriment is cost.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to find singles. You usually have to buy a half a dozen arrows. So it gets expensive. Mm-hmm. You shoot some arrows and they don't fly. What do you got? Tomato sticks. Put them in the garden. Yeah. Throw some beans on them or something.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest detriment. We're lucky here in the U.S. We have a couple of vendors on the internet who will sell you singles. They're expensive, but maybe $30 for 2 arrows. But it's better than buying $200 worth of a dozen, and they're
Yeah.
right? So we have that, and then we have, Sirius makes my kit, and you get $70 or something US, and you can tinker around with that. So the cost, and then just patience.
Mm-hmm.
You're really wandering off the grid, learning to bear shaft. It isn't really, really hard, but then you got to fletch and da da da. So if at minimum, please go on YouTube, find a paper tuning video, and fletch paper tune. At a minimum, do that, please, and then shoot your broadheads. You got to. The other thing on broadhead flight is it's expensive to shoot broadheads. It just is.
Yep.
Especially replaceable blades and stuff. If you shoot a hand sharpenable broadhead, you can just keep one for shooting. You can always sharpen it back up, or just use it as a shooter. And I have a couple of those. I just my practice. Yeah. Or if you shoot one through an animal, and it's kind of wrecked, but it's straight, then just use that and shoot broadheads a lot. It's hard on targets, but it exposes any weakness in your system. And if broadheads don't fly, you shouldn't be out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was one thing I was saying, is that they're trying to implement a maximum distance you can shoot here, and like for the legislation. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
I know. I actually had a bit of a spiel to someone the other day about it. I was like, you know what? I don't even care. It's an unpoliceable policy. Like how? Like I was 20 meters from that deer, 100%, man. I'm standing right. Like unless someone's there, standing right next to you with a camera or whatever. But yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was stupid.
Living in the Mountain West here, where with all this public property and then there's private in between. That's just regulated by your honesty level.
Yeah.
Most of it is. And there's a couple landowners that are kind of anxious and they'll drive up to you and stuff. But as a general rule, I'm always amazed how much country we can run around on it in the western part of the U.S. And you have your Onyx or whatever, and it's literally how freaking good your ethics are and how honest you are. There's so much country out there, you just whatever.
Yeah.
We don't do that. But I'm always amazed at how much access you have. And so, that's unenforceable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Maximum distance.
Yeah, but you go and ask, and like the myth and actually the Nordics totally is that an arrow you should only shoot at 20, 25 meters maximum, and of course, hopefully nobody's dumb enough to say that chances don't increase over that, mainly from string jumping and stuff like that, but. I don't think you should put a limitation on an arrow distance.
There's people with the skills to do it.
Yeah.
There just aren't a lot. And there's the long-range gun guys are a detriment to our sport, in my opinion, the 700-yard guys, because it makes everybody else think they can do it. And then the long-range archery guys, I don't think they should be showing.
Yeah, but
I know there's people who can do it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of
guys need to stop.
But there's a lot of big hunting shows from Americans that are shooting. Look, I shot this mule deer at 86 yards or whatever, and I know sometimes because of the style of hunting out there you have to do it, but I think they're also glorifying long range archery. And I mean, for me, I liked the fact that archery have to be skillful, getting close, and all this other stuff. So before I go any further, I'm definitely not saying there's situations like I understand you guys got ibex in Texas, right? In some parts of Texas. Yeah. And like I was reading documents on them the other day, and they were saying that they think the average distance, I think, was 80 meters or something. Like you have to be proficient.
Yeah, they have to bomb with those guys.
Yeah.
I'm divided on that.
Yeah.
But there are people who can do it. It's just you're encouraging a lot of people to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And there's a lot of people shooting 80 at elk, and that's a big damn animal.
Yeah.
And I'm not. There's people who will say, well, yeah, it's big. Like, you can hit it.
Yeah.
Is it going to penetrate at 80?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Because the speed erosion, I need to redo this, but the speed erosion at 80 or 90 yards has got to be tremendous.
Yeah, really does.
I don't know what it is. I've heard it's as much as 30 or 40 feet per second.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I mean, this is just the thing, is there's a weird thing going on. I can see at the moment where it's almost like some of the people in the top hunting channels are trying to outdo each other or something.
That's just guys.
Yeah,
it could be a gum chewing contest.
Yeah, it's true.
I was watching these slapping contests they're having in Russia. What in the hell is that? My son sent me a montage of slapping contests. Oh my god! These dudes just stand there and slap
Yeah,
each other.
yeah, they get knocked out and stuff. Hey, I've seen it. It's bad.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing. It's just bow and arrows slapping.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Here's one for you. How long do you like your arrows with regard to your draw length?
I cut them about a half-inch past the front of the riser
Okay. Yeah.
because I shoot open. I don't shoot expandables, so I don't want to bleed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So mine are 28 and a half carbon to carbon with the outsert. Well, I've got a half out in there. It's about a half-inch long, so they're 29-inch. Add the knock, probably 29 and a quarter if I was to measure it.
Yep.
I don't worry about it.
What's your draw length?
28 and a half.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I cut them. I measure the carbon to carbon from to the front of the riser, and then my half out's a half-inch, and the broadhead's way out front.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get them back and the arrow breaks, or you get your finger up or something, you'll bleed because my broadheads are deployed.
Yeah.
You don't want that to happen. So that's how long I cut them. Some people cut them very long. Some people cut them shorter than that. It's personal choice. Do what you want.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I got you.
I just do it for safety, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, that's cool. With trad archery, high GPP, grains per pound, is becoming quite popular. I see guys shooting as much as 18 grains per pound. At what point would you say someone is shooting too high of a GPP?
Doesn't matter. If you can hit what you're aiming at. I would load the front, but they're measuring that. I mean, the forward to center is a really big deal in the stick bow world, and it just depends on your trajectory and being able to hit stuff. If you shoot a 20 grains per pound arrow, but you only hunt 15 yards, who cares?
Yeah, okay, I gotcha.
Right? Shooting 40, I might be a little critical.
Yeah.
Especially on a trad bow, because it's just not trucking that fast. So your ability to hit the target is a problem. I saw that with 1,000 grains on a compound. 25 yards is super critical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Shooting at a deer. Now if I go buffalo hunting in Australia, I'll probably shoot an 800 grain arrow, but that's like shooting a truck.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big target. So if I miss by 8 inches, it's not going to freaking matter.
Yeah.
Gigantic target.
Yeah.
So if you're hunting little roe deer or something small or tiny pigs or whatever, rabbits, it could be interesting. You might get a bouncer, hit short, skip, and whoo!
Yeah.
Whack them that way.
Yeah. Gotcha. Right, shooting rabbits is good fun with a bow. When do you feel like you reach the point of diminishing returns with your current setup?
I haven't found it yet.
Okay.
I've started breaking shoulders and cutting humeruses in half, and when I shoot at pigs now, I want to see the offside foot go up like this and then break the shoulder. So the only diminishing return would be if you're shooting pretty far. Any arrow gets pretty critical. There's a video going around by Expedition Archery, and a guy shoots a elk at 86 yards. He's not shooting a high forward to center arrow. That arrow is 3.5 feet above that elk before it goes in. He hits it perfect, kills the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
But it's not exactly going like this.
Yeah.
It's it launches in there.
It's a mortar.
So, yeah. So Dr. Ashby always says, shoot the heaviest arrow that's acceptable for the trajectory that you require for what you're doing with the highest forward to center. Mm-hmm. And that's your main diminishing return. On impact, with perfect arrow flight, a really high structural integrity broadhead, and good forward to center, for killing things, there's no diminish. Mm-hmm. It's just going to penetrate better. That's what the study's telling us. I mean, he shot completely through Asiatic buffalo with a longbow, with 700 grain arrows.
Yeah.
So that's a big freaking animal.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Good bows and broadheads for more budget-minded hunters.
I don't worry about bows as much. I think bows are overblown. The arrow doesn't care what's pushing it. Okay. You can shoot some pretty inexpensive bows, and they'll shoot just fine. I don't like the word inexpensive because it tends to have everybody lean down the hill towards honestly cheaper stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let me divide that up to make things a little more practical. Gold tips, Beemans, basic arrows are fine. They can be tuned and shot fine. I've shot stuff out of the bin at the store, literally pulled them out, the cheapest arrows I've made, and been able to bare shaft them. Well, the spine's right and all that stuff. Where I am concerned about is when you go cheap on broadheads. And I get this all the time. Hey man, what's the least expensive broadhead I can buy? That is a terrifying question. The tool that's going to kill stuff, you're going to try to compromise that. So I would spend money on great broadheads, and then I would compromise that bow and the arrow system quality. Get a brand name arrow, get a brand name bow. Like some of the Bear stuff and some of the less expensive models are fine. Mm-hmm. They have wheels mm-hmm. and a rest. Whisker biscuits are fine. Mm-hmm. I don't get it flying perfect, but don't compromise the killing piece.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So save money on arrows. The arrows that my sponsor, our arrows are very expensive. I mean, they're $130 a half dozen. Mm-hmm. They're not cheap. They're super expensive for arrows, mm-hmm. right? But if you have everybody has an allotted amount of money. Got that. Jack Brittingham's got a lot amount of money, and I have a lot amount of money, and everybody else, right? So I would look at very high quality broadheads with high structural integrity that are sharp. And then everything else I wouldn't worry about. I get guys all the damn time, and it pisses me off. Hey man, I bought myself that new Matthews VXR, cost me $1,400. What cheap broad arrows and broadheads can I use? And I'm thinking, wow.
Yeah. I
spend about $700 on a bow and arrow,
yeah,
bow and arrows, and a half-ass sight with pins.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
20, 30, 40 still the same, and great broadheads.
Yeah. I come from a little bit of a racing background as well, and there was those guys that would spend all their money on the race car and buy the cheapest helmet for their head on possible. It's like, what the hell is going on with that, man? It's like
I went down to the bottom of Amazon to the Chinese section and bought the fire seat that cost me $8.
Yeah, that'll get to me within 30 seconds. I promise.
It took me 40 weeks to get it here, but man, it's nice and cheap.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
right,
it. Yeah.
You know, a leather helmet your grandfather had in World War II.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah.
So spend your money on great broadheads that are really going to handle the impact and stay sharp, and then everything else, just work on the tune. I mean, when I had the guys from the hunting public down, Ted Zangerly. He's a great guy. He's 20 years old and just having a great time. He shoots a $400 Bear bow.
Yep.
When they can get whatever they want. Bear's their sponsor. They can get any bow they make. And he just said that one shoots the best. He shoots a biscuit. His sight's nothing's fancy. His bow costs $400. He shoots good arrows and great broadheads. And he whacks with that thing. So I don't think that the real high-end, super crazy, expensive flagship bows are that much better than. I don't think they're $500 or $800 better.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally decent sticks.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I mean, I've only dabbled in a few different bows now, but it seems to be really some of the only differences: a little bit of speed and then maintenance. So from what I've seen, some of the cheaper bows require a bit more work. But I mean, maybe I've just had bad experiences too, so I don't know.
Well, I did a project called Project Dig Dig, and it's a kid's bow. I shot 26-inch draw length with 700 grain arrows and shot a couple of pigs with it just to see what would happen if I slowed everything down, shot a biscuit, took all the fancy crap out, and shot basic arrows but great broadheads, and it just the things kept dying. I shot a pretty big boar with it, and the only reason it stops because it hit him in the jaw.
Yeah, okay.
Hardest bone in the body is the mandibular process. It didn't break his jaw, but it went through, his chest first. So he went dunk, and he went down. So just keep that in your mind. Get the best broadheads you can. I know there's some vendors over there in New Zealand and Australia making some really good stuff. That's one piece. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And hand sharpened.
Yeah,
and learn to sharpen.
Yeah,
monoliths is you can shoot them 100 times.
Yeah, we actually probably a great time now. We haven't even talked about it yet. Actually, we just picked up our first arrow and broadhead sponsor, and they're from Australia, crafted archery. So they're making high quality carbon arrows. Supposed to be indestructible. We're going to do some tests on them, and the broadheads are great too. They're really nice single bevel broadheads. So I'm looking forward to having a play with those. That'll be my first proper set like that. I've been using VPA, but the 3 blades before then. So
those are great heads.
oh, dude, I had a great
the
time with
3-blade
those.
VPA is one of the sleepers.
Yeah.
It's not as good as a single bevel, but those heads don't break.
Yeah.
They're easy to sharpen. You just put 2 blades down and pull back on sandpaper, and they'll sharpen up. You can shoot them a million times.
Yep.
And they do a great job. I've always liked the VPA 3 blades, especially the solid versions.
Yep.
I don't like anything with vents.
Yep.
I think it just compromises the integrity. They do fine. Theirs do fine. But if you're going to get a VPA, get a solid.
Yeah.
Just get the solid ones.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I've got a set of 150 solids, actually, the VPAs that I haven't sadly been able to test through an animal now yet, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. They look nice too.
Don't kill a tree. It'll go through and kill a tree, and then you'll be sad. So
give the greenies something really to cry about. Anyway,
absolutely.
In chat, someone's saying, "Is there a perfect FOC?"
Is there a target FOC, like a goal?
No. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Like, have you found like there's a perfect FOC, or is it basically kind of depends on your the bow, like you were saying? Is it depends on which bow you're using and how you shoot and all the rest of it?
So your forward to center, I've found that over 16% seems to be where arrow flight and really good penetration starts to happen.
Okay.
Dr. Ashby's study, they started to see a noticeable difference on bone hits at 19.
Gotcha.
So the worst possible situation is to dead center the ridge on the scapula or hit the humerus. And at 19% is when, with a single bevel broadhead and proper arrow flight and all this other stuff, that's where they saw maximum plan B penetration. Penetration, right?
Yeah, I gotcha.
On perfect hits, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter, and Dr. Ed will tell you that.
Yeah, I gotcha.
We're not planning for perfect.
Well, we're not planning for perfect. No, we're planning for the mistakes, right? All the errors.
Correct.
Yeah.
Perfect works.
Yeah. Yep. What are your question here in chat? Can you ask him what spine and broadhead or grain combo do you recommend for deer? Like I'm from what. Let me have a try at this. From what I understand, you don't really care what you're shooting as long as the arrows, like, does that make sense?
You're right.
Yeah.
So if I was gonna recommend a minimum deer load, it'd be 550, perfectly flying, and that's about 225 up front on a 300 spine arrow for a 60-pound draw weight.
There we go.
And then 65 to 70, you just need to spine to 250 and call it the same.
No, that's cool.
That's a really good deer arrow. I mean, that's the kind of deer arrow where you shoot through, you break the scapula on the impact side, and the arrow 6 inches in the dirt on the other side. That's where it really starts to shine. And we've seen that on the pigs as well at the ranch with different shooters and lots of different shooters. 100 grain insert, 125 grain point is a really great combination. And ironically, that gets you to about 16% forward to center. And it really works out. That's really a deer head.
Yeah, that's cool. The other thing too, which I was thinking about before when we were talking about men being men, which I find weird is that, like if you look at the rifle world, a lot of people like to show off about how big a caliber they shoot. But it seems to be kind of a little bit the opposite in the bow world for some reason, where they like the lighter, faster arrows. So it's almost...
The long range rifle guys are all shooting big old heavy bullets.
Oh yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
And that's a verified fact. That's why they make a 338 La Pua. And 300 Win Mags at 200 grains are nasty on critters way the hell out there. We're not shooting a 55 grain bullet out of a 300 Win Mag.
Yeah.
And if you spend any time behind a gun we're lucky to have a private place. So I've shot I can't believe the grass grows behind the ranch house. There's so much lead in the ground out there. And clay pigeons and bombing away. I got a range to 750 with steel targets and all that stuff. And if you get to spend a lot of time behind a rifle, every time I go up in bullet weight, they seem to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
My 30-06s love 180s.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they just eat them like ice cream, so I don't buy anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I just shoot those. And we know they make 125s and 150s for a 30-06, but that 180 just does some work.
Mm-hmm.
It shoots good. So you're right. In archery, we're going to lighten everything up and go super fast and do everything we can. We're going to shoot a 22-250 with a varmint bullet.
Yeah.
At a deer.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody would tell you to do that.
No.
I mean, you can do it.
Yeah.
I got that.
Yeah, New Zealand's the land of can-do. I know some people that head shoot deer with 22s, but anyway, moving right along.
Has the 6.5 Creedmoor thing taken over New Zealand?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, do you know the funny thing about that, mate, is that's a Swedish round. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6.5 Swede, right?
It was like the round that they invented over here, and it's been used for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden it kicked off, and my friends were like, "Hey, have you heard about this round?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's been around here for ages, mate." Like,
forever.
Yeah, and it's
we've got all these clowns shooting elk with them at 600 yards, and
yeah.
I don't know why a faster 140 grain bullet is still not good for elk.
Yeah,
it will never be.
Yeah, I put a nice hole in some pigs and a beaver with one over here this year, but yeah, it's.
No, if I shoot, when I'm shooting the 223, if there's pigs, I just shoot them in the head.
Yep.
But body shots, you shoot a 200-pound pig with a 223, and they'll just laugh.
Yeah,
they may die.
Yeah,
but they run.
Normal.
They don't look hurt.
When I was younger and a little bit more stupid, I shot a pig with a 22 Hornet. I killed it, but yeah, that was maybe.
Did you wound it? Did you wound it to death, or did you kill it?
No, so I mean, actually both. So we'd been going up this valley, trying to look for these pigs. We knew they were around somewhere, and we got up on the tops on the ridge, and we had a snooze because it was midday, and we woke up and we were like. Just like, oh, that'd be really fun if we saw the pigs now. And we came over the top of a ridge, and they were just down on the ridge, like, I don't know, maybe we walked like 150 meters or something, not even that much. And yeah, the sights were bumped, and I gut shot it, unfortunately. And it did the old, spin around and round in circles. You've probably seen pigs do that. Went and lay down under a pig, under a tree, and I just walked up and shot it. But yeah, yeah.
That's the old rodeo spin. They do that a lot when you shoot them with bow and arrows.
Yeah.
They squeal in a circle, and that really helps your recovery rates because they aren't running forward. They're just standing right there going in a circle. It really helps.
Yeah.
Gives them time to come down. Yeah, we've done a lot of things with them, and if you just it's just back to that, there's a lot, and there's always pushing. We're humans. We're always going to do stuff that's crazy, but
yeah.
When you really want to, just as I opened up the podcast or our conversation here, I'm really about high penetration in all situations. Mm-hmm. And I really want you to consider arrow systems that work when things go wrong. Mm-hmm. I will never deny when you hit them right, on the crease, lower 130 in the rib cage, everything works. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's true. Yep. There's no argument against that. It's just they tend to jump and stuff. I'm not that good. People aren't that good. And make mistakes. And the wind blows and it's cold. You got to pee. No warm-up shots. And we need to plan for that situation. It seems to be most common. I get emails from people say, I shot the biggest buck of my life last year with a flapper and a Twizzler and he ran off. Mm-hmm. That's just hunting stress. When you're shooting at a doe or a spike, you're not as wound up. Mm-hmm. But when the big ones go by, not everybody keeps their composure. Sorry, we're human.
Yep.
That's part of the excitement. When that goes away and it's not exciting anymore, just quit.
Yep.
Really? I mean, just quit doing it.
No, it's like archery gave me buck fever back. Like I was saying is, I done like lots of shooting in New Zealand for pest control, and it just became, like a third. It just became run of the mill basically.
Right.
And then archery. I tell you, man, it was great. The first time I saw some goats, I was like, usually I'd shoot them from here. Now I have to work out how to get over there and then
Yeah,
shoot
right.
them. It was
It's
much
so
more
much more.
rewarding. Yeah,
It's just like I still can't get over throwing a plastic worm and pulling that thing through the grass, and then you feel dunk.
yeah.
Every time. I'm 50 years old, and I say, yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with shooting a bow and arrow. The day that I don't know that I'll ever get bored with it because so many things go wrong. The success rate just not shooting is so low.
Yeah.
Right? Just the process. And then you get busted, or they run off, or you fall down, or whatever the hell happens. You don't even get to pull your bow back.
Yeah.
That's why it will never stop. That's
Yeah.
why I'll never stop bow hunting, because even in the situations I'm in, where we're baited hunting and stuff like that, you get busted. And they walk under the stand and look at you and make fun of you, and freaking raccoons climb the stand with you or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in a gun box with a 30-06 0 to 200 yards. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm just laying on the sandbag and, okay, now I got to clean a deer. 200 yards is still a lot before you got to clean a deer with a bow and arrow.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I won't keep you too much longer, Troy. You've probably got stuff to do. I got a few more little questions here. Does the arrow material make much difference in how much weight and length you match the spine properly? For example, does wood versus carbon shaft matter for GPP as long as it's properly spined?
I would lean towards the lighter grains per pound, but I also don't err to the radical side of anything.
Okay.
Okay, so I've shot 600 grains up front. Okay, and I've shot 100 grains up front. I've shot arrows that are the lightest shaft I can possibly get my hands on, and then I've shot full metal jackets too. I always play in the middle. So go to the lower side of grains per inch and grains per pound on the shaft, and then replace it in the front. Kind of the example earlier on with the full metal jacket. Let's say your full metal jacket with 125 grain point weighs 510 grains. Well, you can get a shaft that's not 12 grains per inch, but it's 8, okay, or 9, okay? 30-inch arrow, that's 90 grains you've taken out of the shaft because it's not as heavy. Put a 100 grain insert in the front, and you're at the same place with all four to center. And you spine up. So my advice to people is just don't go too crazy one way or the other. Get a basic carbon arrow you can get your hands on anywhere, because some of the really radical stuff is one vendor under a bridge. You know, he makes 13 of them a year and you can't get them. My advice is whatever's handiest to get in your area, moderate grains per inch, load the front up and get it to fly straight.
Gotcha.
So I sound very radical, but I'm really not that. I shoot 300 grains up front standard because that's what flies on my bow. And that's really heavy because that's most people's whole arrow almost. But I don't shoot a really light shaft. I think I'm shooting lighter, 9.5 grains per inch. It's a normal carbon arrow.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It'd be nice to have a 5 grain per inch shaft that's 250 spine and be able to shoot a 500 grain arrow that's 30% forward to center. That would be an absolute anvil. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Not yet.
Gotcha.
Who knows? He's whipping it up somewhere.
That was the next question actually, is like, what do you look for in a good arrow? Like, there's so many different types of carbon and carbon weaves and things like that. Have you found any that, just don't work, or, I guess that's the question.
The major brands do a pretty good job. If I have seen one thing, I now shoot a woven arrow. VPA, I think, makes some woven arrows. Mine are from Serious Archery. They seem to be more consistent and not as picky bear shaft shooting.
Okay.
Some of the linear carbons and some of the real high-end linear carbons tend to be a little bit more finicky bear shaft shooting. And I have a video on the Ranch Fairy channel called Knock Tuning. And that's actually the process of shooting a bear shaft, and it will kick left, and you can rotate the knock and it will kick right, and you rotate the knock and it will go straight because the shafts have a stiff and a weak side.
Yes.
We've all heard of spine indexing. If you haven't looked that up, then they'll explain that to you. But the arrow comes off the bow on everybody's bow different. You got to find a sweet spot. I find the linear carbons, gold tips, Beemans, Black Eagles, that kind of thing, which is the most common of all the major manufacturers, the linear carbons, to be a little pickier. I'm not talking about throw them in the trash. They're great arrows. You just
got to work them a bit harder. Yeah, I got
But it's better than doing. It's better to stand in your garage and shoot 100 arrows noctuning to get perfect arrow flight than it is to shoot shitty arrows 100 times and wonder if it's you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You can't outform a bad arrow.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Because when you're hunting, you won't be that good.
I gotcha. So when you say the weaved carbon, is that the 3K or whatever you hear flying around?
No, it's actually, woven.
Yep.
Like that.
Yeah,
Woven.
I think it's called 3K weave, is it? Or am I getting...
Yeah. So I think I got to talk to our arrow building guy. He gets to talking in my head, my ears, blood comes out of my ears. I believe they're linear carbon with a wrap.
Okay.
But they seem to be, and like I said, I'm a pretty simple guy. For all the stuff I'm rattling about, when I just gets 5 yards away and I get a bear shafts and I sit there and shoot them, and I know my recipe now. So I know for a fact if it doesn't hit right, I just need to noctune because I know what shoots. But they seem to be more consistent. I don't know. I haven't shot all the VPAs and I haven't shot all the wraps, so I don't know all about that. It just seems like they seem to be very consistent, and I only have to noctune about half of them. Whereas when I shot gold tips, in particular, I just remember this, I really spent some time noctuning, but when they noctune, they shot fine. It's just, you're better off wasting time noctuning and getting your arrows to fly right.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And then when you fletch them, they're going to be amazing.
Yeah, gotcha. Last question from the community here. Fixed blades. There are a lot of keyboard warriors that debate single bevel versus double. All things being equal, on whitetail or similar sized animals, is there much difference in your experience?
The double bevels, when I've hit bones, tend to wedge.
Gotcha.
They tend not to break bone as well as a single bevel. It's well documented in Dr. Ashby's study. Again, it's only 27 years long. There's hardly any information there. 27 years, okay? So there is an advantage to the single bevel that no one discusses, which is the angle of attack of the blade. So if we have a double bevel head, and let's say it's at about a 30-degree bevel, it's 60. It's 30 over here.
Yeah, I gotcha.
30 over here.
Yeah.
A 30-degree single bevel is 30 degrees and much thinner.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? Because you can get a sharper edge, and when it hits the internal organs, it's a sharper edge, and it's likely to do damage of a higher chance of doing microscopic damage, which is exponential. There's billions of microscopic airways and arteries in the lungs and the heart, mostly in the lungs. So if that edge is very thin, that's where the internal damage becomes a factor. We know about if you haven't read about it, single bevels do rotate, and the harder things they hit, they rotate more, and they tend to split the bones open and go through. And I've tested this and shot stuff in the wrong place intentionally, and it's a fact. The trick with single bevels is you better have good steel. There's some vendors out there making $30 or $40 single bevels, and I am concerned that their steel's garbage and they're just riding the single bevel wave.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Because that edge is so thin, if it's so thin that it crumples, you got nothing.
Yeah.
You might as well be shooting a rubber eraser at them. Whereas this blade on a double bevel is thicker, it's going to hold.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It's a steel issue, and it's a tempering issue from what the steel guys tell me. I'm learning about that. We've got a single bevel coming out that I may be branding with the Rancheria brand here pretty soon, and we're making it out of S7 tool steel. I'm getting ready to test it this week and try to break it. I'm going to try to make the edge fold.
Yeah, cool.
Just to make sure it doesn't. I don't want to send it out and get pictures of chattered up, torn up blades.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I think it's going to be fine. but I don't know that.
Yeah.
There's only one way to find out. So I'm going to pound it into some PVC pipes and other things that'll just tell me if it'll do it or not.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Now you get your own broadhead coming out soon. We're looking forward.
Yeah, we'll see.
Looking forward to having a look at that.
It's not going out until I get my hands on it. It's
yeah.
coming there tomorrow, and I think it'll be fine. But it's a one-piece monolith made out of S7. It's a single level. Looks like a lot of them. We tried to build the best thing we could out of the best steel we could and get the tempo right. There's a lot of S7 heads out there, and they're really hard. So it's hard to make the trade-off for can you resharpen it without having some kind of crazy diamond power tool that costs $1 million. And then will it hold up?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Once it goes through an animal, because you can't have the blade fold over. Mm-hmm. That's a structural integrity issue.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I said about the 100-grain broadheads, with a 200-grain insert, it may be fine, but if the blades hit something like an elk's a big animal, and they're that thick, sandbar deer or those big red deer y'all are hunting over there, they're thick. So 5-7 inches of penetration through hair and all that stuff, and the blades get compromised.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? It's going to go into lung tissue and not cut anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really overlooked deal.
Yeah.
And I think it's some of the reasons I lost a few animals early on. The pigs have sand and dirt, and their hair is terrible. And I do think the broadheads, I never got them back. If I could have found them, it would have told me. But they ran off with the arrows. But I think the blades were compromised.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't see that anymore. You shoot like 300-grain tough head, they don't break, they don't bend.
Yeah. Gotcha. So I've been doing a little bit of arrow calculation to try and build something that I'll be trying to test out. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking maybe I need to drop the shaft weight down a little bit because I have to use a 250 spine arrow from what I can see. I've got 672 grains with a 16.8% FOC.
Currently?
No, not currently. I haven't built this yet. This is all just on paper. Is what I'm thinking about putting together. So that's with a 4 vein setup as well. So.
Well, just shoot a few different field points on there. Just if you can get your hands on a bunch of different ones and make sure it's flying right.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to ask me, they send me full setups and say, is this going to work? And I say, I don't know.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
700 grain sideways is not worth a damn. Shoot 500.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. Yeah, it makes sense, actually. Yeah.
No, it's just facts. It's going to go in sideways. And if 500's flying perfect with a great broadhead, it's going to go through them.
Yeah.
700 sideways is not a good shaft. Conversely, if you're obsessed with not shooting over a 600 grain arrow, but you happen to put on a point and it's 630 grains, the arrow flies bare shaft perfect, but you're pissed about it, 550 grains because you're happy, flying sideways will not work as good.
Yeah.
Because it's flying sideways. It has nothing to do with mass.
Yeah.
It can't be flying sideways.
Yeah.
Or a little bit sideways. It's a massive reaction to slam into something standing still.
Yeah.
Moderately still, unless you're jumping or whatever. It's flying along, everything's fine, going through the air, and then it slams into something.
Yeah.
Any little bitty little thing, the whole arrow is going to lever and go all over the place, and it's going to reduce your penetration.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And we got to get through them. And then
we were going to talk about it a little bit. How much time do you have, Troy? This is
about 10 or 15 more minutes. Come on.
Yeah, no, it's the FOC edition at our honors. Like you were saying about the True Blue crossbreed that I used in the Ibex video. I haven't had a chance to run those through an animal yet. I have tested them in terms of like paper testing and flight and stuff, and I can get them to fly okay. Like, have you had much experience with them yet? What do you think about them?
With what?
Remember that you sent me the picture of that of the
the exploded
exactly
slasher or
exactly yeah exactly.
We've already discussed mechanical broadheads, so I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
you're asking for trouble. It's got a giant slot in the middle of it.
Yeah, okay.
It's gonna explode. I know. I had somebody from Australia, I think, send me pictures of Asiatics they've killed with them.
Yes,
and that's fine. It's got a giant hole in it.
Yeah, okay.
I just don't know what's going to happen if you hit something really hard, and then it still has the blades are still out like this and all that stuff. I'm just simpleton.
Yeah.
Once I learned to hand sharpen broadheads, the hair popping sharp, and I have broadheads that don't break anymore, I am biased.
Yeah.
I am. There's no doubt. I just cannot shoot something I can see through like that.
Yeah, that's so good. I just thought I'd ask because you did spot that I'd been using them in that Spanish video. So,
do you tune with the blades closed or something? How do you tune? How do you make your arrow fly when you add 4 inches to the front of it?
So I actually cut my spine a little bit. Sorry, I cut my length down a little bit more just to keep this.
No, I got that, but I mean, do they have a practice point so you can
tune
with the whole thing on there?
Yeah, you do tune the whole thing on there, but you slide the O-ring right up to the front of it, so it does. The blades do deploy still. They do still deploy. So, yeah, but it's just.
Are they easy to sharpen?
Well, yeah, but it's that okay. To start with, they're really sharp, but you get a whole bunch of replaceable ones of them too. So it's
you just flip the blades out then.
Exactly.
So you just save some blades for practice and
exactly.
Then tune like that.
Yeah. Like every kit.
I'd be interested to see what happens. I mean, if you shoot something with them, send me a picture.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
It'll be great. I just have a hard time when you showed it and you rotated it and I could see like 2-inch tall sunlight through it. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
It's a giant hole, and so here's what I'm concerned about. If that thing starts levering before the blades deploy, that hole could compromise and just wrinkle. I don't know that that's going to happen. But I just see a giant slot.
Yeah. And
then an arrow hits a bone and starts going like this, and they deploy. Is it just going to fold? I've got a couple of pictures of schwackers that are folded. They're bent like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotcha. I've used schwackers and bent them like that, actually.
Yeah. They've been around forever.
Bananarama.
And a lot of people have killed stuff with them, but there's so much going on at impact that you can't predict. If you could make sure that with that particular system that you could hit a standing still animal perfectly broadside every time, the thing's going to be magic.
Mm-hmm.
I've just never been able to do that. The quartering shot and that kind of thing bother me because you're going to have one blade deploy, the other one not, and it's going to lever. It's going to have the same weaknesses. Now, if it goes in 5 inches and makes a wound 7 inches long, it's going to be a bad day for critters.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So whack something with them. Let me know.
We're going to do some destruction tests soonish, actually, so maybe I'll stick some on the front, see what happens to them while we're doing it. Yeah,
I would do that. I would want to know, and I'm not doing this because I'm being an ass about mechanical stuff. I would just want to know what's going to happen. I mean, I think a piece of plywood or something like that would be enough.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
shoot angle.
Yeah,
I would shoot angle.
I mean, I've seen videos of them shooting through cars and stuff like that, and they come out looking pretty sweet.
Well, so there's the problem there. So I have a big problem with I'm going to do some of this too. I just was doing this yesterday. So I have a 3/8-inch thick piece of particle board that I'm using as my broadhead testing subject.
Okay.
For edge integrity.
Yes.
One thing no one does is check the blades before and after they shoot through boards and stuff. It's a horrible miscalculation of edge integrity.
Mm-hmm.
To assume that because it's sharp in the air and sharp in your quiver, after it goes through a board or car hood or something like that, it's automatically sharp. So when y'all do that, if y'all shoot through a board, take a piece of paper, check it for sharpness somehow.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And then after you shoot through it, try to catch it. It's only fair to the broadhead guys if you don't let it hit the ground. If you shoot into sand, nothing survives sand. I've done that. No broadhead. They're all dull as a hammer. It's unbelievable what sand does to them. Dirt and sand.
I learned that with a chainsaw.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So to be fair to the broadhead guys, all of them, if you do any destruction testing or anything like that, try to catch them.
Yeah.
Like put a target back from them so they stop.
Yep,
a foam target. Something fair. Don't be unfair if you're going to test. It's not right.
No.
But I would check the edge integrity after it breaches
Yeah. Have you
something moderately hard.
have you seen what John Lusk does? I watched some of his test videos. He runs a
Yeah, he
carb.
doesn't shoot sharpness either. He just shoots stuff in his house and things like that. I'm not a fan because of that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's okay. He's an okay guy, and I've talked to him on the phone and that kind of thing. Fine, but the sharpness is what kills.
Yeah.
And if nobody checks that, so I'm going to do some of that this year.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll do it with my head, the heads that are coming. I was shooting Tough Head yesterday. I shot the Iron Wheel yesterday. I shot VPA. But what I did was I hand sharpened them. I stropped them all. I got them to where they would cut paper perfect.
Mm.
No chatter, just slick sharp.
Yeah.
And I shot the Iron Wheel, the VPA, Tough Head, the long Tough Head. I shot the new Tough Head 3-blade. All of them I shot through particle board 3 times, and all of them would cut paper still.
Yeah. Okay.
I need to go get muzzies and some other stuff and see if it's just every one of them does that, and I'm not shooting the right material.
Yeah.
Because animals eat them alive.
Yeah.
Some broadheads come back really in bad shape. And I need to find, maybe ribs I know ribs are pretty elastic. Maybe it's just they fragment and shred them. I don't know. But the more stuff you shoot with broadheads and the more time you spend, if you get a broadhead, like let's say it sticks out of both sides of an animal, and then you find it, that's a pretty fair one to check. One that goes through and sticks in the dirt, you might as well, it's not a fair data point.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
Because the earth, it's unbelievable what dirt does to them.
Yeah. When I was an apprentice, I asked, because why does sand dull a chainsaw blade so much? And they said because you're hitting millions and tiny bits of rocks at 1,000, feet per second. I for some reason it didn't click in my head until they had said that, because you think sand's soft, catches things, like that, but it's made up. It's made up of tiny rocks.
The head the whole time, right?
Yeah.
It never gets out of the way.
Yeah, it's just tiny rocks. Is all sand is,
Rides down it. I shot the sand pile yesterday with them, and none of them survived.
Yeah.
They were terrible.
Yeah.
They were like the edge of this paper. I was just like, what? And I knew what level they were at before they went. So that was a pretty interesting test. And then you start to think, God, we shoot elk and stuff that wallow.
Yeah. Same with the red deer.
That's got you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And you shoot something with really thin blades, and you shoot an elk that's been wallowing, or a red deer or something during the rut, and it gets all the stuff I think about. There's half the stuff I think about I can't put out on the YouTube channel, or I would never stop answering questions. You get in a hole and look for the shovel.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Hey, mate, I'm gonna let you take off in a second here. But thank you so much for your time, mate. And I'll be trying to push this as many places as I can. I will get in touch with the guy over here who's helping trying to get bowhunting legalized, and I'll give him
reach out to me. We'll try to at least get the study in Sweden's hands and try to help out and get that going.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. So yeah,
all right.
Thank you very much, mate.
Have a good day.
Yeah, catch you, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye.